Oh, I have to recuse myself. Thanks, Beth.
You can go take a nap. Don't forget your coffee.
I can still take
Are
my
you
paperwork with
abutting
me, right?
in a butter to in a butter?
I am in a butter.
Oh, you are? Oh, I didn't realize you were in a butter. I thought you were further away than that.
All right,
So where are you?
thank you. We can share this one unless you have enough for.
Oh, these are,
I think I'll have enough.
these are the ones we saw electronically a little while ago.
Yes.
Okay. Yep, yep. There were 4 options.
You back in business? We're all flipped out here. The same as you paid me, right?
Actually, I'm gonna take it anyway.
So I just handed you reduced copies of the preliminary subdivision plan we filed just for your reference, and also copies of the package we submitted a few days ago to the board. As the board will remember, at the last meeting, there was discussion about possible alternative configurations to the subdivision, and the board asked us to go off and take a shot at looking at some other ways the site could be developed. And the applicant agreed to do so. So we did that, and I presented to you a package basically with 4 options. Option 1 is the preliminary subdivision plan that we filed. That, I think, as the board will remember, evolved from some preliminary discussions the applicant had with the board before we filed the preliminary plan. And we've gone ahead and looked at 3 more options in addition to that. And it's a combination of conventional options and open space options, and also a combination of through roads and non-through roads. So I'm just going to go through one by one, and then we can discuss with the board. And if you have any questions about a particular option as I go through, feel free to ask. Option number 2 is a conventional plan, but it's 9 lots instead of 11 lots. And the way that we could justify that is we are able to eliminate one of the roads, the road that parallels Mountain Rock Lane. And taken into account here is the assumption that we'll be able to go with some of the low-impact development construction techniques that we talked about at the last meeting. Reduced pavement with integral bituminous berm instead of sloped granite curbing, going with roadside swales instead of catch basins, some of the things that you've done on past projects that allows infrastructure costs to be lowered, thereby offsetting some of the lost value with the lots that are eliminated as part of this particular proposal. This does involve a through road connection from Oakview to Frederickson. It is the same Road A. It is a slightly different version of Road B with the lot geometry a little more roomy. I just kind of changed the orientation of that road a little bit more to follow, again, the top of that crown of that ridge out there. But it's essentially very similar to the preliminary plan that we filed, minus this road stub here. Okay, that's option 2. Option 3 is an open space concept. This is about as tight of an open space development concept as you could come up with. The open space bylaw basically allows us to go down to 20,000 square foot lots, average of 100 foot of frontage with a minimum of 50 feet in any given lot. Obviously, the areas that we would target for open space preservation are the wetland areas in the northeast corner. There is an isolated wetland in the northwest corner of the property. Those, because of the way your bylaw is written, the percentage of wetlands in the open space parcel can't be higher than the percentage of wetlands in the existing parcel. So we would have to carve those 2 off by an A&R plan first before we did this and set them aside. And they would basically be excluded from the development package. Would just be a set-aside unbuildable parcel of land, both of those. Then what is left would become the open space parcel. And here we just have 1 through connecting road. No stub roads, and we have 11 open space lots, and we have an open space parcel to the west, and also an open space parcel to the east. Taken in total, there would be nearly 60% of the total 17 acres would be set aside outside of lot development areas as part of this particular proposal. And again, this assumes that we would be implementing low-impact development techniques for the construction of the road, reduced pavement width, bituminous berm, roadside swales, things like that. We'd be looking to decentralize our stormwater management patterns.
How
And
would
we'll-
anyone other than the people that live in these houses access this open space?
We could implement trail easements. We could also implement some access strips if we needed to, by fee. One of the two certainly could be implemented into this particular plan. One of the restrictions with the open space development, and I mentioned it the last time, and I'll tell you that the applicant was not really keen on open space development. They weren't thrilled with the concept of smaller lots and a more congested development. Well, one of the things we do have to contend with open space is there is a mandated zoning setback to this surface water body, which is an old farm pond, basically. There's a 200-foot structure setback to that. That's this green line here. So we're not able to put a structure inside of that green line. So lots 10 and 11 become constrained. The house would need to be close to the street. It'll work, it'll fit, but it is a constraint that we will work around because it is a mandatory provision of the zoning bylaw. And the third option is the option that the board asked us to look at specifically last time, which is a disconnected road system. So we have an existing dead end at Oakview Trail, which is about 200 feet long, a little bit less. We would extend that another 300 feet to make a grand total 500-foot long dead end on Oakview Trail. Frederickson Road, as we know, is already a long dead end. We would extend that in about 315 feet to extend that dead end. And what you'd end up with is you'd end up with two dead end roads that don't meet. We would need to do this because of the geometry. It would have to happen as an open space parcel development. So it's the same concept as option 3. You would carve out the two wetland areas as A&R lots and not put them as part of the subdivision package. You would then have an open space parcel on the west and an open space parcel on the east. We can connect those to the roads. We could also, obviously, we would tie the water main systems together through the two roads. We could do an emergency access between the two roads if that's something that the board felt was necessary. So this is the fourth option, and again, you'll see the green line here, which again ends up constraining the structure placement on lot 8, 11, and 12, but it works. Just would mean that those particular houses would need to be probably 50 feet from the street or so.
You don't have a combination of the two cul-de-sac in an open space. How
This
come you
is
never...
open space.
I'm not talking about that two cul-de-sacs. I'm talking about the original two cul-de-sacs.
Well, if you're going to open space,
That's where clustered
could-
zoning would work the best, is on the two cul-de-sacs, because it's set aside from the way all the other neighborhoods. It's not just a straight row where you're going to all of a sudden get a dense area.
so you're saying have a through road and have two cul-de-sacs out and then cluster.
And cluster on the cul-de-sacs.
It's a possibility. I will tell you that this area is not conducive to a cluster area because we have the wetland here.
Oh, all right.
There is some rock up here. This would not. This area certainly would work to that end, which is kind of how this evolved. This type of a configuration could be done as an open space configuration, certainly. I think really the threshold issue that we need the board to give us some very clear direction on, and there was a lot of discussion approaching this, but we need to know if it's going to be a through road or if it's going to be disconnected cul-de-sacs. That is like the crucial issue that drives the design and kind of drives us where we can get to a point where where the applicant can make a decision as to how to proceed.
Steve, just so you know, we had our hearing, Andrea, we had our hearing last time, and one of the comments from PSC, and I asked Mr. American to show us the two cul-de-sacs, although I'm not sure if the way that they're feathering each way is the best way based on what the grades show, but in Tom Houston's review, it said that this small amount of roadway would have the traffic of a 50-lot subdivision.
Really?
Yeah, with the connection. So basically, between this being a 50-lot subdivision normally has 1.5 to 2 miles of roadway in it, where this thing is going to have perhaps 900 feet. So between that and between of going into Frederickson, where you have a sight distance problem going into the left, and also emerging two widths of roadway, because Frederickson now I think is 18 or perhaps 20 feet. It varies, but
About 20 feet of pavement.
it's all wooded, and going from 24, that's why I had suggested that they try to bring out two cul-de-sacs, connect them with emergency access and a water loop. But just a question, Dan,
Yes.
you got Road B that's curving over towards all of the grade, the significant grade changes?
Well, it
It-
follows that ridge. These two could certainly be brought in closer
Well,
together.
Well, I was just wondering, what if Road B was swung the other way to get the space over it? That would, yes, over the, and what if you weren't limited to 300 feet? If that was made a little bit longer to give you the lots you're looking for, but to minimize a lot of the grading and the cuts and the fills? And then where Frederickson is now, just make that shorter and really, you could put a larger cul-de-sac there and just put a number of lots on that. Keeps you away from the wetland area and keeps you away from all that significant grading.
So you're talking about basically reversing the
I'm talking
road
about reversing
concept.
one and making that one longer.
Come in here,
Yeah, go into the space where it's more level, so you don't have as many cuts and fills.
and then
The Frederickson one, make that and sort of capture all of the level graded area and even make the cul-de-sac bigger to put more homes around it.
Well,
So we're-
that kind of
yeah.
gets at the question of, which John's poking at indirectly, which of these plans, including the one that John suggested, has the minimum impact on the current topography?
Right.
well, the one that has the least impact on the current topography is option 3, which is just a through road.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't involve coming out into any of the lateral areas with any road work.
Yeah.
You're
No.
talking about the open space through road.
I'm talking about, yes, this open space concept with just a road connecting Frederickson to Oakview. There is no, road work out in here. The topography here is not, nothing crazy.
No,
It's
this
just,
is the difficult part.
it's
over
this
here.
ridge here,
Right.
and it's not difficult topography to deal with. It's all sand. But, yes, so this would have the least amount of impact in terms of earthwork and
But the most
construction.
amount traffic-wise, because you end up with a 3,000-foot road.
Well, again, this is where it comes down to, I think the board has to give us direction. There are competing interests here. I certainly understand the interest of the neighbors and the butters. There are also public safety issues, and the board really needs to tell us which way the town would like this to go so that we can, decide which way to pursue.
Now, where are the 50, you're saying the traffic of 50 house subdivision would be added to this
This would
through
have the
road?
If it was a
This would have
through
the
road,
traffic-
if it was a
Where
through
would,
road, I
where
think
would
that
most
was-
of that traffic come from? Because I live on King Street, and I would never think of taking this cut through,
That's
because
on
it
the
would be
report.
very inconvenient.
So the comment was,
Yeah.
is that the way your regulations are written, the design criteria for a road, primary, secondary, residential, is based on how many houses front on it. So the nature of the comment was that if you connect these two, Oakview and Frederickson change, this whole thing changes character definition-wise.
Oh, you're talking
It-
about the definition
It
of the
might go
roadway.
to a secondary, which is 7 to 50, and it might go to a primary, which is over 50. That was the comment. So, that we've had an preliminary traffic analysis done, which we submitted to the board. Our consultant who's here this evening doesn't feel that there's going to be a lot of extra traffic generation created by this through road, but again, I feel like this is a town policy kind of a decision that,
Did you get?
if it's reasonable, if an alternate proposal is reasonable to the applicant will absolutely consider it, whether it's a through connected road or not.
Back to John's point in terms of the layout of the project. A few of us visited the property. I know John had previously visited the property. This was a few weeks ago now, and the high ground is absolutely stunning. I mean, it's
It is.
very beautiful.
It's beautiful property.
I came to the same place independently where John is in terms of the access from the Mountain Rock side to perhaps swing that cul-de-sac over in the other direction.
Okay.
And then coming at it from Frederickson, if you had a 90-degree or something similar to that, where the road came as close to and perhaps cut into that high ground, but perhaps not to a significant degree. You'd have to maybe hold back the bank somewhat, but I don't think it'd have to be too significant. I'm wondering if you could develop on that section of roadway, you could develop properties on the left and preserve the high ground in its current form,
Try to
I
preserve
guess.
this ridge.
Exactly.
Jeff,
And-
the difficulty is that green line, though.
Yes, the green line is a constraint. We cannot have a structure inside the green line the way the bylaw is written, and there's no way around it short of a variance
Which
from the
we weren't
zoning.
really thinking of when we were looking at that day.
Is
It
it,
wasn't
is
on
it
the
gonna be
plan.
any tighter
No, it
than
wasn't.
this?
It wasn't.
It's pretty tight.
So in terms of where the high ground begins,
High ground, that ridge starts right about here, and it runs right through here. This is the ridge.
so coming at it from Frederickson, okay, this is really where it begins on that side, correct?
Correct, yes.
So in terms of being able to put some type of roadway in here, you're saying this becomes,
We can't have a structure inside of this green line. So, and a house has to be set back from the road a certain number of feet. I think it's 50, under the open space. And, so we're constrained by that green line, and that's not something that we have any wiggle room with.
What type
So
of
is that a-
structure can't go in there?
Any type of structure.
is that a conservation
structure?
commission?
Well, subsurface?
No, I believe the bylaw intends to mean houses and sheds and things like that. Drainage, I think drainage could go in there.
And it's 200 feet within what?
It's 200 feet from the surface water, which is the little pond that's there.
And whose bylaw is that?
That is the open space bylaw, the zoning bylaw.
I'm just trying to look at this because if I was one of the folks living on either side, the biggest priority to me would be the excess traffic, the cars. And combined with the two different widths of roadway, and you're gonna create a roadway with a 60-foot right-of-way that's all clear, and you're going into a 20-foot paved area that's all wooded with mature trees right to the pavement. So, and if you drive down there, you'll see that you've only got, so as our consultant said at the last meeting, it's just a chance for people to get up ahead of steam and coming out of Mountain Rock and going down, and having a sight distance problem as the road narrows in. So, just my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I see it working both ways. Again, I think it really is local preference here. And that's why we're looking for direction from you guys. We could really go at this either way.
How about your opinion from a practical standpoint in terms of the green area, the protected area? I mean, from a practical standpoint.
On
Feel-
your layout concept?
Yeah, put our regulation aside, yeah, in terms of my concept.
Well, I mean, I
Is
think you
that-
can. The reason I brought these in this way is because Frederickson, as it comes to the end, is curving in this direction.
Yeah.
So we certainly could reverse curve it, if it were characterized as a residential road for the extension or something like that. You can have a tight 90-foot radius. You could do something like that. That's certainly doable. And this, Oakview is straight, so Oakview could certainly trail up in this direction. This is something that I can look at and see how it lays out.
And I think coming at it from the Mountain Rock side, you could probably get one home, two homes before you come to that elevation. which we're talking about, that we're trying to preserve.
Down in here, yes.
Yeah, so I think
Yeah, you'd end up trying to basically kind of set aside this part of it.
it's beautiful. I mean, it really, I had no idea until
Pretty
I
spot.
went out there. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
You know, I think that if something like this with a disconnect worked out, Dan, the time between now and the subdivision review, you would certainly have justification, in my view, to go for variance because of the hardship, and the hardship being excess traffic by the development of this property.
What variance
I don't
would be
see
needed?
that as a hardship.
Excess traffic flow? I do.
We've always felt as though roads should be opened up if they connect. I mean, we've been talking about opening up this roadway here for 20 years.
Not if
I
you
think the
bring-
challenge is, though, that
Traffic.
Frederickson is already, it's deficient already, even as a cul-de-sac, a dead-end road. Now, if it becomes open to through traffic, now, I'm not sure we can properly mitigate that. I mean, it puts sidewalks, but I'm not sure in terms
I
of
don't
road
think that-
widening, and I'm not sure that you're really gonna be able to make that conducive to through traffic very
So
easily.
you're gonna have the traffic coming all the way from Berkshire right through here. From Berkshire through King Street, down through Mountain Rock, and out into Grove Street. I think that was part of the PSC's comments when,
Yeah, I
when
I
Dave
think
showed
that
me.
people would try it, and then they'd realize that's not a convenient way to go.
I don't know, I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't
You
know.
go into the MBTA parking lot,
Maybe it works
it's
well
gonna
for
work.
people who live on different parts of King Street. Not for us, it's great. Right into town. Yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
No, I don't think you need a variance in order to.
You're not ready to
allow
open
the
up
two
another public,
cul-de-sacs.
are you?
That's
Huh?
under the
No.
No, just to allow this 200-foot
200-foot
setback so they can
setback
make
buffer.
those lots more doable,
I think
It gives you more room.
this road.
more room.
Yeah.
So,
Safety.
So that would save this
It's a
whole
safety.
high ridge over here, all of this wooded area over here, that affects all the people back here on Ridge Road, too.
All right.
I don't know, John.
The key to an open space is to, key to a subdivision usually is to protect what's best about the land.
Right.
Right.
That's what you
And so
target.
you heard pretty specifically,
Yes.
and pretty eloquently, in terms of one development.
Yeah, where the open space should be is in one location. It shouldn't have two open space parcels. It should have one open space parcel of the best land.
And
It may end up
that
being.
connects to a public way.
It may
Right.
end up being contiguous, because that high ground eventually, it tapers off, and then you get into, I think, where some of the wetlands are, right?
Correct.
So, we may be able to accomplish what you're describing, Steve.
Yeah, because even if they did an open space with some of these smaller lots on one side, and actually, they don't have to be that small. You can start having longer driveways with odd-shaped lots if you wanted to.
I just think that Road B swinging the other way, and Frederickson
I don't
coming
like
up-
the two.
They're both labeled Road B, in my opinion.
Yeah,
so which
I don't
one
like
to me is
the
true?
two cul-de-sacs to begin with.
Sorry about that.
That's.
I figured you wouldn't, yes.
Yeah, that's.
So you may be open to my idea of having one cul-de-sac, and then have
I
the
would
other
say
one be
no
more of
cul-de-sac. I
a,
would say
more of a-
put it through.
a dog leg,
Put the road through.
90-degree,
Yeah.
what have you.
No.
But
Well,
the-
I don't, yeah. Okay, so you don't agree with,
No.
it's a good try.
Because Frederickson itself is a very difficult road.
Extremely difficult. There's no drainage on it either.
Right.
We've run into that situation in other sites, and
Right.
it's, so I understand the T, and
Should we hear from the neighbors and see which way they're
Well,
gonna go?
we'll have to wait until the board's finished with all their other comments. Because you have other people here that wanted to make some presentations also?
We have our traffic consultant, if you want. If you
Yeah,
wanna
I'd like to hear from the traffic consultant.
their meeting, they came with a standard subdivision plan. and all
Good
the
evening,
reasons that
Chairman.
They couldn't do an open space.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we sort of forced them into that because we wanted to maintain 20 acres of woods being maimed and going from 2 wooded subdivisions heavily to just one big open 20-acre prairie. So they did this under our suggestion, so that wasn't their first desire, but, yeah.
Whoop, we're getting,
Okay, go right ahead. Sorry.
Good evening, Colleen Medeiros. I'm a professional engineer with McMahon Associates. And as Dan stated, we did a preliminary traffic assessment pending. We were going to go dive in a little deeper once this kind of hashed out the layout. So initially, we did do some traffic counts at the end of Frederickson, where it meets Grove, and then at Oakview at King. And then we also did some travel time runs from the end of the 2 ends of the cul-de-sacs of Oakview and at Frederickson to different points, whether it would be a quadrant we looked at heading northeast, northwest, southwest, and southeast from those points to try to get a handle on the attractiveness of connecting the 2 roads. And when we looked at that scenario, we did see that the traffic volumes on the 2 roads they're low generators right now. And then also on the travel time runs, we saw there might be potential there might be some cut-through traffic that would be attracted to the connection. However, it would be not a noticeable increase in travel time that you would see that you would want to alter your route. It was about approximately 1 to 2 minute, maybe for one of the runs that you would head, that would be maybe quicker, but when you're in your car driving, that's pretty unnoticeable. And as you're all aware, the comfort level of Frederickson is not inviting. So maybe for the local residents in the area, it would be something that they would see to start to use. But from more of a town-wide, regional aspect, it's not going to attract this big cut-through problem. So that's preliminary what we started to dive into. I can answer any other questions, but at this point, we saw a minor impact if there were new trips. There would be maybe about like 10 to 20 new trips added onto the roads of Oakview and Frederickson, which in our opinion is pretty minor.
Okay, thank you. All right. Andrea, do you have any questions?
No.
Jeff, do you have any?
We can circle back maybe after we get some comment.
Walter?
well, no, I got my question answered, Rich, in terms of which of the designs had the minimal impact on the topography. And we also have answered another question which the board was considering, which is just how much of an impact additional cut-through traffic would have. So I'm set, thanks.
John? No?
All set.
Ray?
I have no comments, thank you. No questions.
You all said? Do you have any comments? Okay, I'm going to open it up to the public. You have to identify yourself for the people at home. There's microphones that you have to be talking into. Go right ahead.
I do.
My name's Scott Bragdon. I'm at 12 Frederickson Road. I think with the traffic itself, I absolutely believe it's going to be a cut-through. You got Union Street, then you got Bridie, and Frederickson's right in the middle, and that whole area will try to come through there. And maybe it's my ADD, but you tell me I'm going to save 2 minutes going downtown, I'm going to take that route every time. That's just me, but, I mean, I cut through John's property to go downtown, not just because it's pretty, but I think it saves me a couple of minutes. I don't think it saves me any more, but I take it every day. The other thing you got to keep in mind is not only does it dump, going to increase the traffic on Frederickson, but it dumps out onto Grove Street, which is not much better. Very narrow, no sidewalks, curvy, dangerous. I mean, you live in the area, you're familiar with that road. So to increase traffic on that road, I think is improper. So that's just my thoughts, and
Anybody else?
Question and then a comment. My name is Joe Brescher. I live at 2 Mountain Rock Lane. The first question I have is for the young lady that did the traffic report. May I ask you who commissioned you to do the traffic report? Was it this?
The
Well,
applicant did.
you address any questions
Oh,
to the
sorry, I'm
board,
sorry. Okay.
and we'll address her to answer.
I'd be interested as to who commissioned her to do the traffic report. Was it the board, or was it the builder, or the designer of the layout of the company, of the property?
Well, I believe you're required to do a traffic study.
We are.
So you jumped on it before you were asked to do it, is that right? Or did somebody
It's a
ask?
preliminary study that would be the precursor to the definitive study that would accompany the definitive subdivision application.
So the reason why I'm asking that question is because obviously there's an opportunity, not saying that it would exist, but there's an opportunity that that report might be slanted toward the person who is procuring the activity, number one. Number two, in reference to your comments about the traffic, I'd like to know, did she, when, whoever did the traffic, actually the tallies of the cars going back and forth, were they there at what times during the day? For example, often at night, there are many times that people come off of King Street and go up Oak Trail thinking that they can cut through to Frederickson, and they turn around. Now, are we counting every time that somebody that's not from around the neighborhood even, or out of town, thinking that that's a way to cut through? Are we counting those people, or are we not? Because I'll tell you right now, just the other day with the snowstorm, when there was very few people on the road, as I was shoveling my driveway, there were 6 different vehicles over a 1-hour period that came down from King to the turnaround on the cul-de-sac, thinking that they could cut through. I'm wondering if that kind of traffic was tabulated. And it's not uncommon for that type of traffic, especially in the summer, by the way, when there are more cars on the road and more people thinking that they can take a shortcut to try to get to someplace else off of King.
Now, would you tabulate anyone that did that pulled into the cul-de-sac thinking they can get through and then turn around?
No, our traffic counts were just at the intersection of Frederickson and King, and Frederickson and Grove, and then King and Oakview. So they were just the full turning movement counts, and they were during the weekday morning peak hour, 7 to 9 a.m., and weekday afternoon peak hour, 4 to 6 p.m., which those are industry standards. That's what we do for a typical residential subdivision. And then we analyze the peak hour from those traffic counts. And those traffic counts were conducted by a third party. It was not conducted by my firm.
Okay.
And that was in November.
So, again, I don't, okay. So I would agree that those are considered the normal rush hour times, the morning and the afternoon commute. But there are other people that are not, and those people are probably the people that live in the neighborhoods, going to work or to take their kids to school. The other traffic that we're talking about is people that are in the area for whatever reason, visiting people or doing other things, and those are the people that are, when they find the shortcuts, they're going to try to cut through them. And as we saw with, I believe it was Berkshire, when that was opened up, the traffic coming from Grove going to Park Street increased considerably, because I know myself, I did that. I used to go down Grove Street and come up Bryety to get to my house from Franklin. Now I cut through Berkshire, I cut through whatever the Eric to get there. So it's a natural, and Mr. Bragdon, I believe, was the one that said it. 2 minutes, we're going to take the 2 minutes. We're going to go to save the 2 minutes, and so is everybody else. So there's definitely going to be a traffic impact. And if you don't look at the whole picture outside of the 2 rush hour periods, if you will, then you're not looking at the full story.
I just wanted to, this is obviously preliminary, so we can do more studies on counts and stuff. But the 2 minutes that I was referring to, that was just one scenario. It wasn't going to the downtown. It was actually going to the southwest. It wasn't heading north. We did not find an increase in travel time to the downtown area. So that was I just threw that out
You
as an
didn't find a
average.
decrease in travel time, or you didn't?
Decrease, sorry.
Yeah. So going to the center of town, there was no decrease in travel time.
Okay, how about going to Franklin toward the main road there?
I think that's what you're saying is
Yeah.
the south,
Southwest.
heading towards Franklin.
We saw
is
that,
where
there
was
might be the
increase.
potential for it.
Yeah, that is one, because that's, like I said, that's what I used to get to my house after they opened up Eric and Berkshire. Because otherwise you had to go down Grove Street and then cut to Union. So it makes a big difference now, and there's a lot of people that do that.
Okay, anyone, okay, identify yourself?
Mike Sawyer, 18 Frederickson. My concern is with the cut-through and connecting the two roads. I think, if you ever are looking at a time to save that 2 minutes of traffic time, it's going to be to commute to the MBTA train station in the morning. If you've ever been out there and monitored speeds in the area as it is right now around train times, people are far exceeding the current speed limits. I think you're going to increase the traffic on Frederickson coming from the other subdivision through there on a very narrow street at a high rate of speed with no sidewalks. So I do think it's going to create some additional public hazard. Thank you.
Anybody else? Oh, yeah.
I'm Sarah McKinney at 6 Oakview Trail, and besides the traffic and the safety of the kids that now are traveling on Oakview to Frederickson, that is the only safest route in which they go to get to the center of town on their bikes, because they cut through and then they go over on Castle. So if you make that a primary road, that eliminates any kind of safe travel for bike riding. It's a simple, casual activity besides the cars. But more importantly, I really feel like all of these plans are cramming a lot of houses in a small acreage of land. And we talk about the beautiful, land to the left and the topography, but you cram in 11 lots, you're destroying a lot of trees and the beauty of it all the way through. So I think there's a way to add houses into the area, but I think 11, even 9 is excessive.
Anybody else? Oh, go right ahead.
Jeremy, 14 Fredericksburg.
6, okay.
Question for the board. What's the effectiveness of connecting the roads? Thanks. Jeremy Sink, 14 Frederickson Road. What's the attractiveness of connecting the road? I understand there's consideration of safety, possibly getting emergency vehicles through, but I can't imagine a giant fire engine coming through that particular area. I don't understand why.
Normally, there's a connection for public safety reasons, but as I had mentioned in this case, where the traffic increases could be disproportionate to the size of road, and the conditions of Frederickson being narrow and wooded, and Grove Street, as somebody had mentioned, being narrowed and wooded, that sort of goes to offset the benefit of having it a public safety feature. That's why it was mentioned if there was 2 cul-de-sacs, an emergency road connecting them with a gate that was only for emergency vehicles would sort of help serve that purpose.
Well, the other answer is the board has generally always encouraged through traffic as opposed to cul-de-sacs. Always. Many other neighborhoods, the same thing has happened to.
So how does that preserve the rural character of Norfolk? I mean, that's why we all moved here.
Well, you don't, well, what about all the people that are living on the other roads where the new subdivisions go in that all have cul-de-sacs, so everyone has to go on the roads where the people were already living there?
You'd have to
Now,
ask
it
them.
doesn't, there's arguments for and against all sorts of different ways of doing it, but connecting neighborhoods and creating through traffic as opposed to cul-de-sacs is always a better option.
I don't think always.
I respectfully
I would
disagree. I just don't understand that argument.
I don't think anything is always.
Well,
Maybe usually.
well,
I think this
every
would be,
time a cul-de-sac ends up being built through, We hear the same thing.
And for good reason.
Yeah, we don't want traffic on our street, yeah.
So, just briefly, the other thing you got to keep in mind with the traffic is, as GPS things, is that when that goes through, like, GPS is going to bring people through there. I was surprised, I updated my GPS and put in the quickest way to town from my house, took me right through Trailside. So, people that are coming through that area, you know, the grandmothers or whoever aren't familiar with the area, they put in their GPS, it's going to take them through Trailside, it's going to take them down through Frederickson and these roads. And I don't think it's, regardless of what you're saying, Steve, I don't think it's in the best interest of these residents in that area and the town to push that thing through. That's all I have to say.
Sally Vesti, number 9 Frederickson. I live about halfway down, so I'm not at one end and I'm not at the other. But my question is, if you're going to be wanting to put it through and have all this extra traffic, does the town have the money to widen Frederickson Road, put up streetlights, and put up sidewalks for us to make it safe?
That's easy to answer.
Well, basically what would happen is there would be mitigation, a certain portion at least of those expenses, those costs would be borne by the developer. I mean,
And is the
depending on-
developer prepared
We'd have to work
to-
through all the
To
details.
pave Frederickson Road and give us sidewalks and give us streetlights to make it safe?
That's
if it's going
unrealistic.
Yeah, that is unrealistic. I mean, I've been living here for 26 or 27 years, and there's no sidewalk in front of my house.
But there is a sidewalk and streetlights on Oakview Trail. So if you're merging the two neighborhoods, wouldn't you want it to be the same?
Well, the new roadway would have sidewalks.
Mountain Walk.
And it's not uncommon for the board to take the requirement for 2 sidewalks and
Right.
put one of them on an existing road.
That's true.
So, Steve, you agree that whatever happens as far as the development, when complete, this board would need to be of the opinion that it was a safe situation, correct?
Yeah.
In terms of, and we also would receive input from the fire chief, police chief, et cetera, to ensure that that it is a safe situation. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm in favor of connecting, you know, the 2 roads. It's just that I mean, that's the way we operate as a board.
Mr. Chairman, has the board sought opinion from police and fire yet?
Not yet.
Because we don't really want to go down a path and find out it's the wrong path, so it may make sense to do that now.
All right.
Just a thought, Mr. Chairman.
We'll ask an opinion of both of them.
It might be easier for them to look at a plan. And if you're going to suggest another plan tonight,
I'd like the plan, as Jeff and I had talked about, moving the direction of one of those road Bs and, or Jeff's idea, what was it, to tee it, Jeff?
T. Frederickson.
Angle it, 90 degrees.
Just a 90-degree, if you will, at the end of the road. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think that could be managed in
Yeah.
terms of ensuring that somebody, you know, is not going to drive
You
off
could
the
put a
road.
cul-de-sac
and get to the end.
at the junction of the 90-degree angle to get more lots there for them.
Along the bank, so that you take that left, and then you've got the embankment off
Right.
on the right. You may
Right.
have to hold it back a little bit, but I think you can preserve a fair amount
Right.
of that
all in
highland
that
and
one
all the
side there.
trees and
Right.
and such that go along with it.
Frederickson's an awful long road on its own.
It is. It's an awful long road.
Right. But
How long is Frederickson as it exists right now?
I don't have that number off the top of
It's
my
like
head.
2,500
I think
feet?
it's close to 2,500 feet.
Jeff, I think that suggestion is good until you look at that green line. I mean, I don't know how you're going to get any houses on the north side of that road.
Well, maybe we can deal with that, you know,
Well,
if there's a
what about
practical argument, and then
it
there's
goes
a,
across, it goes across that, don't look at the line. Don't look at the red line.
How far is that green line set back from Lot 12, from the street?
It's about 85 or 90 feet.
So what's your setback for open space, 30 feet?
I think the front yard setback is 30 feet.
30
I'd
feet? So if
have
you
to check.
got a 35-foot house, you still have
Yeah,
a
right,
25-foot backyard.
Yeah, Well, this is not a yard setback. It's a structure setback.
Okay, so you
It
can.
can be
so
yard
that can be, okay, so that's fine
inside
then.
of the green line.
All right, so that doesn't make it an issue, because if
It's a
you set
structure
back 30
setback
feet with a
issue.
40-foot house, you get 70 feet, so you can have as big a backyard as you want.
Yeah, it's just that that's
That's right, the backyard
that's a
can be
house
that entire
close
green
to the
area.
street.
What's that?
The house is somewhat close to the street.
Varying the distances
Well, go one
is
step-
part of
go-
open space subdivision.
Go one step further, put the house 40 feet back, 35, 40-foot deep house. You still got
Yeah.
the house at 40 feet, which is almost standard, and you get all the backyard you want.
I mean,
I
the
don't see
good
that as
news
an
from
issue.
your perspective, and you'll have to see how many parcels will fit into that design, that plan, but the good news is that a lot of that earthwork, which I think would be pretty costly, you may be able to avoid. So I think maybe working together, the board working, may be able to come up with something that, a win-win type of solution, which is, I think, what we all want.
Yeah, I mean-
Let me offer another thought. Can you flip to the straight-through one?
Option 3.
I forgot the number, but let's say it is 3. That's the fellow.
Yeah.
We have touched on it earlier when we said that we generally like, Steve said, we generally like to put through roads for public safety reasons, assuming all other things are equal. And in this case, we're hearing that there's a lot of other things that may not be equal. So this does the minimum change to the topography, provides 11 lots, and if there were a gate at the end of Frederickson, would, in essence, retain 2 cul-de-sacs and have emergency vehicle access through a lock gate.
Yes, I mean, a through road doesn't have to be 2 separate layouts. It can be physically just not connected.
Well, it could be connected, but just with a gate there.
Right.
So that the emergency vehicles could get through if they needed to. We have looked at that type of configuration in other situations as well.
It is a possibility, certainly.
It doesn't make it any, that option 3 makes it look like every other standard subdivision, and
Well,
all
it
the
does.
open space is off in the backyards of the new homes and not available to the rest of the community.
Well, yeah, except that's what we were talking about, is getting access to it.
Yeah, I mean, this is like the least inspired
What one?
3.
It's kind of straight.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you, Ron, do you mind
that's why I like it.
changing the configuration as Jeff, one of our board members, said, and swinging that road over and making it a sort of a right angle with a curve to it to utilize all that extra land over there?
I don't mind looking into another concept. I don't believe that we'd have a right or to even request a variance, though, in reference to that green line.
I don't think you need it, but as we just talked, I think you're all set. You can have as big a backyard as you want.
I don't have a problem going through one more concept and meeting with this board again on another concept. So if that's something this board wants me to look at, I'm just trying to get a consensus and move to that next step. So if
Yeah,
that's
I'm
something the
blaming-
board wants me to take a look at, I have no problem doing so.
What about if the road came up and, are you talking about trying to bend it this way?
Yes.
I think that's an excellent idea.
Which way were you bending?
Bending it here.
Yeah.
So in that way, you can get the open space that you want over here, which is the best part of the parcel.
You're talking about a through road with a bend in it.
Yeah, through road with a bend, right here.
Yeah, I wouldn't do the through road, but I'd do the bend.
Oh,
We're close, though. We're close.
we're close.
Yes, no, you're not that close. You're still pretty far apart.
But I think the main thing is, the good land is over on that side with the minimal grading and keeping most of the contoured land wooded. I think that's what we're all talking about.
Yeah.
So I guess what I would suggest then is that I will go off and do another concept, and then we can reconvene at your next meeting, and hopefully at that meeting, we can get a consensus for the board as to which way to go.
Maybe we can talk with the public safety folks in the
Yeah.
meantime, huh?
Yeah, good idea.
Just to get their feedback.
Good idea.
So, in terms of the open space regulation that applies,
Yes.
is one way to address that, have this proposed as two separate projects, one being an open space and perhaps the other not an open space, or?
Well, the only way that you're gonna be able to save that land that you like is with an open space.
Right.
It's the only way that you're gonna be able to do it.
But it doesn't mean that some of the lots wouldn't have a conventional layout.
Yeah, some of the lots, and they don't have to be lined up in a straight line either. They can,
Was that, that's what you're getting at?
Yeah, if you had a layout that worked well, but that was an issue in terms of the green boundary, if you will, and if there was a way to delineate and have this be one project, this be another, in terms of just dealing with the regulation. Maybe there's other ways to get after it and achieve the objective here, and I certainly, don't want to do anything that would be concerning from a practical standpoint, but if there's a way that we can develop a project here which everyone feels good about, and there's no hazard created by proximity to the pond and such, I'm very interested in creative ways to achieve that.
Okay.
all right, so you want to continue this public hearing to, oh, more questions? All of a sudden, there's more questions?
You didn't walk over here. Look up.
Go right ahead.
John Burke, I live at the end of Frederickson, and I just wanted to point out on the traffic study, I believe she said there'd be like 10 to 20 additional trips for the cut-through, if you get the road connected. And I just wanted to point out, if you're gonna put 12 more houses on the street, it's gonna be 12 more trips from those 12 houses, because those people aren't gonna be going to King Street, they're gonna be going down to Grove. And you've probably got maybe 30 houses on Frederickson, you're gonna add another 12, another 30% increase in traffic just from the additional houses, never mind any cut-throughs.
Yeah, if there's going to be 11 houses, they're not going
Yeah.
to be just 10 more.
Right, well, whatever,
cars.
but I'm just saying, you're gonna add additional traffic from the new construction.
Mhm.
It's not just gonna be additional from the cut-through.
Makes that decision harder because as good as the folks do with the traffic study, still when things are built, and I've experienced this for years, perception is very different than actual counts before there's a connection, and there's just no accounting. So, as good as this young lady has done, not to say it couldn't be substantially more, like our consultant was pointing to. So it's a judgment of the board here with the input from the folks that live there.
I'm well aware of that, John, being on the zoning board for years.
Yeah.
We had the same firm do traffic studies, and they were no closer than,
Yeah,
they were just guesses.
I understand, but, you folks, with the habits that you all have or would have, may anticipate just as well as anybody
Right.
what it may be, so. 'Cause my still issue is that it's a road that's limited. It's an older road and it's limited, and it goes on to Grove Street, where I had some experience with, and unfortunately, we talk about putting sidewalks in, some of Grove Street, the actual pavement is owned by the people that live on Grove Street. Because years ago, these town roads were not put exactly where they're supposed to be, so you may not have the right to even put a sidewalk down there because it may not be town-owned land.
And
So
even if-
that's nightmarish, so.
Even if you did, the telephone poles are right against the pavement,
So
there's
my
trees
biggest-
that would have to come down.
My biggest thing is, I don't
I
think
mean,
that's
it'd be a
reasonable to
nightmare.
think you're gonna have that fixed up and with a sidewalk, so.
Hi, Kendra Smith, 41 Ridge. My question is really just, I don't know what A&R parcel means. It sounds like it becomes some land that's set aside. Could you just explain what that is? And also on the open space parcel, who ends up owning that? And is there any like demo done to it or whatever during the construction, or does it end up staying the exact same way it is before
the
the
same.
development's done, and is that, again, owned by the
Owned by the
town?
It's owned by the town and managed by the Conservation Commission. And those A&R parcels are just a piece of non-buildable land that's eventually going to be open space. It's done just to get around some zoning to make this an open space plan, make it work.
Does the town own that as well, or does
The town will own that too.
And the
It would be
property
turned
doesn't
over.
Yes.
given to the abutters or anything
No,
like
the
that?
voters don't get it.
Is that the intent, is to turn it over to the town?
Well, the disposition of the open space is something we would discuss in
Well,
the
I'm not talking
hearing,
about the
but,
open space. You've got a couple of A&R parcels on here.
well, the intent here is obviously that these A&R parcels would become contiguous with the open space. It's part of the open space
Oh, okay.
concept, even though it's excluded from the plan for zoning technicality reasons.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Typically, A&R means approval not required. Usually, it just complies with zoning for what you're using it for.
So if there's an existing road and there's property along that road that conforms in terms of frontage and other aspects, then it doesn't become a planning board matter in the same way a subdivision or.
So does this land get given to the town then?
They're talking about including it with the open space.
Okay, and then nothing happens to the open space? There's no, like, trees taken down or anything?
No,
Ooh, we
nothing.
try to maintain our.
There might be trails.
Might be trails put in.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep.
Michelle Mayhew, 5 Mountain Rock Lane. I just wanted to address the comment about connecting roads and the impact on rural communities. So I have a fair amount of study in community planning, and there's an important reason that wasn't stated tonight why you want to connect roads. The emergency vehicle status aside, successful communities are built on the idea of connecting neighborhoods. When you connect a neighborhood, you start to build a community. So there's a qualitative reason that you do that, which has been a model of success in planning communities throughout the country. So I don't think that you get a rural aspect to the town by having a bunch of different, dead-end roads throughout town. That's not what gives the town its rural aspect. You get that from the trees that you maintain, the setbacks from your road, how you detail a road, the size of a road, how you detail your construction. But the idea of a rural community doesn't mean that you just cut people off from one another. The idea of connectivity creates neighborhoods, create community. So I'm a huge proponent of connection. I think it leads to a better quality of life, and that's just something that's nothing to do with emergency vehicles, which is another good reason. That being said, on this particular layout, because of the very unique and special quality of the topographic area in here, I think the direction that the board is asking the applicant to go is the right direction. So to not connect the roads really just because of that high ridge area of land that's in there would just be too disruptive for what you would gain in the end of it. So I think that trying to curve the road mirror of what you did on the last option, trying to curve it the other way, limit the number of houses to not be 11, but something that would fit a little bit better. And I think open space, again, to preserve the character of the neighborhood also fits in well. So I think all those things would be accomplished. You would not connect the road, which concerns others. I'm not as concerned about it, but it meets that concern. You would meet the topographical constraints of the land, so that would be a win-win. And if you did the open space concept, that preserves the character of the neighborhood. So it seems like the three main things you've been talking about that are competing interests, if you went in that direction, could perhaps all be resolved through that kind of a layout.
Okay. Anybody else? Back here.
No, Alicia Gibson, 8 Mountain Rock Lane. My question really is, everyone keeps on talking about it. Who decides that there's 11 houses have to get stuffed? Everyone keeps on asking you guys, or making a statement, but no one references why is 11 so important. It's like you're trying to stuff too many houses.
It's zoning law, and we cannot stop them from utilizing the law on the books and putting the number of houses that they can in.
Right, my other question was the last meeting, which I did not attend but did watch on Norfolk TV, someone asked them to come to this meeting and show and give an idea of what type of houses they were going to build, what was the quality of the homes they were going to build, and it was discussed, and I wrote it down, that it was going to be brought to this meeting to explain what the developers were considering, what type of homes, but I've heard nothing discussed tonight by anyone representing the development.
Well, I chaired that last meeting, and I don't remember it as you do, because basically, they're working with different plans now. An open space plan would have a very different setup and house construction than a regular conventional plan. So at this stage, to ask them that would be premature. And secondly, just so you know, we're welcome to ask, but they don't have any right to
There's
tell
no
us
regulation?
anything. Absolutely not, no.
So you could put up sheds
If
on
they
all
wanted,
lots?
if they wanted to offer that and what the phototype might be, that would be up to them.
Right, no, actually, in your meeting, and I wrote down notes after I watched it, you said, could you please, and they said they absolutely would come with some discussion of it for this meeting, and that's one of the reasons I was coming. But it was not, and actually, I think it was someone on the board, I'm not sure which one of you, but I wrote it down, asked, and it might have even been you, not.
Well, I have some notes. You're correct.
Thank you.
Mike Mahoney of 11 Mountain Rock Road said he moved here 6 years ago. He's a Realtor and asked how big the houses are going to be. I didn't make any notes in terms of whether or not the applicant would
They
come
said they would,
this
they would be
evening.
happy to just tell us something.
So and you may be correct.
Well, do you people have an answer for that?
As Mr. Wellington points out, the type of house that is constructed here will depend on the type of subdivision we go with. So when we reach a later stage, we certainly will have a discussion about the general character of the homes that will be built here.
I think part of the challenge is until you understand the topography, you get into this question about walkout basements or not and such. It can affect, your
There's a lot of different
style of
factors.
home.
You know,
Frontage mainly, the frontage, they couldn't even
the
begin
width
to
of the
tell us
lot, the
house, yeah.
frontage, the size of the lot, those all come into play
Yeah,
as
right.
to the type of house you're going to build. So a little bit later on in the process, we can talk about that kind of thing.
Building on Steve's preference and my preference for this particular layout, where Steve also talked about curving it around, and then the discussion moved on to Jeff's proposal, which is instead to have that cul-de-sac tilt in the other direction. Yeah. Who knows? The town might win the lottery down the road and have the money to widen Frederickson someday. So as you're doing that, could you consider, since you're going to bring water through there anyway, figure out a way to leave a little strip of land where the two roads could be connected in 3015, 2015?
We can look at that option.
Well, isn't that part of maintaining a emergency vehicle access?
Well, there was no discussion of maintaining emergency vehicle access in Jeff's proposal.
Oh, I think that's required.
Isn't
I think that,
I thought that was understood.
I think it's
Emergency
understood.
vehicle, yeah, it's
wasn't
in
it a-
zoning that you have to provide emergency
And the
vehicle
looping of
access.
the water.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
That
If
definitely
there's
should-
a cul-de-sac that goes to another cul-de-sac, you have to provide, it's in zoning that you have to.
Right, good. Well, I'm glad
Provide
it's
access.
explicit.
Sue Haley, 2 Frederickson Road. I'm right on the corner of Grove and Frederickson, and as we've all said, that this road is very narrow. If you've ever tried to get 2 cars at the end of that street, you cannot. Also, there's a bus stop at the end of that road, and there are cars parked there at 8:30 whenever the bus comes. So just to realize, not only do you have cars parked there, dropping their kids off at the bus, but now you're going to have people cutting through at the same time. Just something to think about.
I know it's narrow because every now and then I have to back out of a driveway over there on that road and have to make sure I don't take out the mailbox on the other side of the street.
Yes.
You're not a big car.
I'm not a big car. Crossover.
Sure, again, from 2 Mountain Rock Lane. I understand that about the house question, at this point in time, you can't ask the developer to really be more specific. And maybe the question I'm about to ask you also can't answer, but I would like to know one thing. When the final layout is approved or agreed to, does the town have any right to prohibit things like strip cutting all the trees out of the parcel to make it easier for the builder to push the dirt around and build houses? Do you have any authority on that, or are they, again, have a blank check to do whatever they want?
There's a tree bylaw, so the developer cannot touch the side or rear setbacks from the back corners of his house all the way around the rest of the lot.
But anything in the middle, he can
He can do.
cut anything he wants out. So back to the first meeting, And when, I don't remember which of you, it might have been a couple of you actually, talked about keeping the integrity of the two already developed communities and not turning it a very wooded, treed neighborhoods into all of a sudden having this arid oasis except for the perimeter.
Right.
Again, I would like us to keep that in mind when we're talking about whatever we're talking about for this final.
I think that's what we're trying to work towards now.
Yeah, and I'd like to keep that on the thoughts of everybody on the board.
Anybody else? Okay, so we'll continue this to, when is our next meeting planned?
We don't have one on the,
We don't have one on the calendar yet?
I don't think so, do we?
It's either, it's March 3rd, it's probably the, unless someone wants to come in earlier.
Are there any zoning articles likely to be put on the warrant?
We have nothing.
All right, so we have all of February. Does anyone, I mean, we do want to stay away from Thursdays, correct? We want to stay with Tuesdays? Is that the way most people feel?
Yeah, you want to do try to shoot for the 24th?
No, I have a Board of Health meeting that night.
Uh-huh,
Oh, okay.
okay. 26th?
Well,
Third
that,
February.
You're gonna make me do 2 night meetings? Really?
Say again?
Cindy gonna make me do 2 night meetings?
Well, I don't know, it's,
Well, the 17th is right after the long holiday.
what's after the holiday?
The 16th is President's Day.
Oh,
So we March 3rd?
I guess March 3rd. I guess that's what we're leaning towards, right? How are you on that day, Jeff?
okay. March 3rd, all right?
Yep, March 3rd at 7:30? Okay, is someone going to make that motion to continue this? Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Thank you.
okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Is it possible that a sketch plan might come in before then?
So Andrea, since Michelle is sitting out, you're going to
Stay for all of them?
stay for all of them, right?
Okay, okay. First time I've been needed the whole time I've been on. I'm getting bored over here. Yeah.
This is just conceptual.
No, I am.
That's why it's
But it just, it helped me out with the thing.
Great comment.
Oh, really?
I felt like saying, and that's the reason why you elected her to the board.
Street sign is wrong.
They're like, damn it, why did we vote for her?
Don't get back down off those three rows up. Don't start getting soft.
No, I know. I brought it months ago. And we looked at the zoning maps, we looked at the planning board maps.
Well, that's why I
Frederickson's a
wanted to
tough-
curve it away, because it curves it
Frederickson
away
is
from
tough,
where all the good land is.
Yeah, no,
Have it in that lower corner.
totally agree. Totally agree. And Frederickson is a mess, but I would still vote to connect it, even if with Frederickson being the way it is. If the topo, if you didn't annihilate
them
that
to
hill,
improve a
the hill
couple
is
of
beautiful.
You know what?
The hill is beautiful.
When you
You
have
don't want to annihilate that.
two separate roads that are connected with a fire lane, then the bikes and the pedestrians are going to get through.
Right. Well, you know what? But you build that road the right way, then it's a safe road for the kids to still bike on.
Yeah, until you get to Frederickson.
Until you get to Frederickson, but that is what it is.
Yeah.
It's no,
But,
it's
you know,
no,
over
you're not making
time-
it any worse than it is today.
Over
You're still only
time,
making it better.
the town will come in, they'll take down a few trees. That's what happens with, I mean, King
Oh, on
Street used to be.
Frederickson. Sure.
King Street used to be just like that. When I moved on it.
Yeah, with trees in the middle of the
The
road.
trees in the middle of the road, yeah, when I
middle of the
moved on
road.
it, it was like that. And it's changed.
Yeah.
Scoot over.
No, I think that idea, like I said, it's the sweet spot between all of the competing interests that are going on in there. So
But I did
you
say
can see
connecting
it.
neighborhoods, I did say that.
yes, it's
Yes. She said, oh, and so no one
Huge
mentioned the
planning-
connecting neighborhoods. That's
Is dinner run late?
Huge planning.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
It's the,
Dinner run
what I
late?
meant to say, no one mentioned it. It's not, it's a quality of life. You want good neighbors, you want a good neighborhood, you want a good community. You connect with each other, you don't shut each other off. That's not how we be good humans to one another, right?
It's hard enough to meet your neighbors as it
How'd
is.
you like that?
Yeah, I don't see my neighbors.
I know, because you don't have a sidewalk.
The guy across the street from me, I saw him for the first time in
When I lived on Medway
6
Street
months.
with no sidewalks, I was much closer to my neighbors than I am out in Mount Rock on a dead end with sidewalks. Never see any of my neighbors.
People
What I'm
don't
basically
walk.
saying to you is that this
one's out
concept,
doing
this
it.
idea.
This is a 7:45 meeting.
Oh, I know, I know.
I mean, when we were out, everyone helped each other.
That other one
always
was-
out
Was it part of the kids?
You know,
Was it because they all had young
These
kids?
things get scheduled this way because if someone calls and cancels,
Yeah, it might be.
Our neighborhood's
We have
quiet
to
like yours.
Yeah.
wait for an hour and a
And now
half
they
for
all
something.
hire people to do their work for them. And they're not
Sounds
out
great,
normal.
just like everywhere else.
Okay, but it wasn't- yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, there's
We don't have a design plan for
Yeah. It's, and the other thing is that to
We have an A&R.
any increase in traffic when you have no traffic is a
Why
lot
do
of
we have an
traffic.
A&R?
That's why we always hear the same things when people
Yeah.
have a cul-de-sac going through.
Yeah.
It happens all
We
the
have
time.
no traffic.
Yeah.
We have, so two cars.
It happens, but yeah. It could be the developer's more amenable to it than that kind of discussion. It's good. I was actually looking for the bylaws to see, there is something in there.
You up? You're up in May? I'm up
No,
in
I'm
May.
not up in
I'm
May.
up in May.
I don't think
You're
I'm
up.
up.
in- Oh, I thought you were up.
No, I'm up in May.
Oh, no, we're not all that.
I'm
And
considered.
Jeff went in behind me, so
Ah.
he'll be right along.
No, that was neither. Well, if you did, they would have had your.
Cody Pet Hospital, what,
Dead end, that's.
is there a special permit?
It's a
for,
sign issue.
decision for that?
It's a sign issue, I thought so.
Sign review board gonna look at that sign? Wasn't that the last step?
I understand.
I don't know.
I don't remember.
Review decision
I
for.
thought we approved that contingent on.
It's
the-
just relocate.
You're the only one?
Yeah.
Why would design review have to look at something for
We asked them to
relocate?
keep them in the loop
Feeling like
because
somebody else.
they don't
It's
want
not
to be left out.
Because they're not changing the
Well,
sign,
not
we're just
just-
relocating.
Yeah, I think I'm the only one. I think I'm the only one.
Yeah.
No, it's not John, just, this is first year.
Okay, yeah, do you-
It's
I
just me.
think they ended up not relocating, they ended up putting it under the
Underneath
new
the
bait shop
Bait shop,
sign.
that's right. And there was a picture of that came around on email. Yeah.
I know, I read it. I did read it somewhere.
The thing is, sometimes the time commitment's a little bit much on top of a full-time job and managing a family. You know,
Are we going to address that?
sometimes it's a little hard.
Email we got from the Quigley area?
Yeah.
I asked Gino,
Did you?
yeah, he's gonna check into it, he's not sure.
The question about what?
The drainage basin in the medical building, the outlet being higher than else. First floor level in Norfolk Plaza.
Have to get up to speed pretty fast.
Right.
Really?
Well, the question was, is the basin far enough from the side lot line? I
What are
thought
we
it was
on? On which
always
one?
No, the one we just had.
Oh, just last week. I mean, just last meeting.
Gino says
Yep. You only missed it the last meeting.
25 feet from the side lot line and 100 feet from the street, so.
Is it still Korea?
A base,
Welcome back.
They have
Based
not
on
submitted.
medical.
yeah, it is 100 feet, 100 feet from the street, right. That's right.
This one.
The Frederickson, is he in preliminary?
Yeah,
Did it
that's, I
start,
think,
or did
25
he-
feet.
Or did
That's what I
he-
think.
Is this just,
I think
is
it's
this just
So
in
whatever
preparation?
would
It
be-
is.
It's the,
So it
yeah,
is
it's public
an
hearing.
application.
Yeah, so it's, but it's
Okay, so I need
preliminary.
That really doesn't determine
Yes.
whether he's gonna get water in the
Yeah.
basement. It's all about the infiltration of that basin, et cetera.
Yeah, 'cause
So that's
otherwise it
only
wouldn't be.
one-
With that. Okay. Pine Street Medical Building. Review and endorse the A&R plan. Okay, go,
evening.
identify yourself.
My name is Paul
You need
Broderick.
a,
I'm with Site Design Professionals.
Is it on? A little green light.
It is not on. There we go. My name is Paul Brodmerkel. I'm a site design professional. I'm here this evening with one of those fancy A&R plans you talked about earlier. This plan will combine 6 existing lots on the Pine Street Medical Building locus, which formerly, I should say, was a residential subdivision that never got built. So we took these 6 lots, we're going to combine them into one for the building that you see on the intersection of Valley Street and Pine Street. Some of you may have noticed it.
Yeah.
On your way into town.
Very nice looking, by the way.
Thank you. It's time to get these lots all combined into one and make the building inspector a happier guy.
How come that didn't happen
Yeah.
in the
I
beginning?
thought
How
it
did you
had.
build, how did you build over the lot lines?
I don't recall.
It was, we made a commitment to do that. At the time, we were overwhelmed a bit with the Board of Health requirements, and it just got pushed aside. So we're here now to get it done.
Seems very logical.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, right.
I had just,
Like, why not do
Gino,
it?
did you already look at this?
I looked at it just a little while ago.
Do you see anything?
combining lots, so it's
Yeah.
fine.
Okay.
All good.
No
We need
issues
30,000 square feet. We've got almost 5 acres.
Oh, okay. So, you have no comments, Gino?
No, it's fine.
Since Gino has no comments, does anyone have any objection to signing the A&R?
No.
Okay, someone want to make a motion?
I move that we endorse the A&R plan for Pine Street Medical Building, 31 Pine Street.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Let's see, I abstain.
so we'll endorse it. Do you have all your copies here for us to endorse?
We'll take care of that, and I'll have those ready for you next week.
Great. Thank you for your time.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Toils and Farm, Fox Run subdivision.
Open the hearing. John's going to have to read it.
It's, this is a modification hearing, so we have to open this one.
Thank you.
Notice is hereby given in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A and 41, in the Town of Norfolk zoning bylaws and the Planning Board rules and regulations. The Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Thursday, February 5th, 2015, at 8 p.m. in Room 124 in the Norfolk Town Hall, 1 Liberty Lane, Norfolk, Mass., on the application of Pulte Homes of New England, LLC, for modification to a previously approved open space preservation definitive subdivision plan entitled Toils and Farm, and also known as the Fox Run subdivision. Plans by Marchionda and Associates LP dated January 14, 2015, located off Maple Street in the R3 zoning district. The applicant proposed to modify the drainage system in Warren Drive, revise lot lines for lots 65 through 68, and allow for the grant of an easement over the roads to the homeowners association. Plans, applications, and associated materials are at the planning board office and may be inspected during office hours.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, my name is Mark Mastriani. I'm here representing Pulte Homes of New England, the applicant for the approval modification request for Fox Run. And with me tonight is Mike Rosati of Marchand and Associates, who has worked on the drainage improvement plan that's before you today. So there's actually there's 3 portions of the Fox Run subdivision modification request. And so just to orientate everybody, so where I'm pointing to is Maple Street, which is where the Fox Run subdivision has access off to. And this discussion started based on the town's interest or concern over, we have a drainage outlet of the subdivision outlets to Warren Drive at the intersection of Maple Street, and the approved drainage, the town has taken concern or interest over the approved drainage system. So we've worked with Marchand and Associates to come up with a drainage improvement plan. which would improve the situation. But there is 3 parts of the request, so the Mike Rosati will go over the drainage improvement plan that we presented to the board. The other portion of the request is that in order to accomplish the drainage improvement plan that we're proposing, there's a Lot 4, which is a part of the Fox Run subdivision. We need to move that house lot. Mike's solution proposal does not allow for a house to fit there anymore in order to affect his proposal. So what we propose is to move Lot 4 down to where 65, 66, 67, 68 is. There's 4 lots there, and we'd like to make those 4 lots 5 lots. And the 5 lots will still meet the necessary frontage and necessary setbacks and the size requirements of the zoning. So before you in your package, you have a subdivision modification plan which reflects that request. And the third item is to allow a grant of easement over the roads to the homeowners association. So the basis of that is the sewer system associated with Fox Run is a privately owned and maintained sewer system that all flows down to a privately owned and maintained wastewater treatment facility that's regulated under the Mass DEP, Department of Environmental Protection. And when the initial draft grant of easement, a deed and grant of easement to the town was drafted and submitted to the board at the beginning of construction, that document, that legal document, omitted the sewer system and didn't contemplate the ownership and maintenance of the sewer system. So we've submitted to the board a revised grant of deed and quitclaim deed and grant of easement to the board. Our attorney has submitted a revised document, and I think town council is reviewing it now. And essentially, the change is that it grants an easement to the homeowners association for perpetual ownership and maintenance of their private sewer system. So that's the second request, or the third request of the modification. And the first request, I'll call Mike Rosati to come up and walk you through the drainage improvements that we're proposing.
Good evening.
Well, I hope you've got pictures.
Yes, we do. Plenty of pictures.
You're not going to be able to explain it to me.
While this sketches up, I'd like to elaborate a little bit on this. This is the area of concern that was expressed to us. This blue line right here, you see here, is the high point in the subdivision. Everything on this side of that line flows down to a basin at the end of Hemingway in this area. Everything on this side flows down to this outlet on Maple Street. So the concern was expressed to us was that they felt there was too much water coming down Warren Drive and discharging at this point just before the wetland, and was causing some erosion. This area in gray that I have are all the lots in the subdivision that are developed and have houses on them. The white are areas that have not been built yet. So you can see from this blue line down to Maple Street, there are only 2 areas in this watershed that were available to us to resolve this or improve this situation. Lot 10 is one of the areas. The problem with Lot 10, and we did not pursue anything on Lot 10, was its relative position. It's located at the top of the watershed, so we really couldn't get anything to work there that would be significant. We were left now with Lot 4. Lot 4, again, has some limitations, but we were able to, so what our approach was to try to divert as much water from Warren Drive into Lot 4 and discharging in this direction, and allowing the rest of the water to flow down to where it does now, hopefully, and grabbing enough water off of Warren Drive so that the
flow at this point met what currently got there or got there before the development happened. So a picture of what we're proposing. This is a blow-up of the area of Lot 4. This is Warren Drive over here, and this is the throat coming down to the larger area of Lot 4. And the green area would represent, the real dark green here would represent the existing vegetation and what we expect to keep for tree clearing, for not tree clearing, I should say. The lighter color would be the area that would be affected by the construction of the pond. There's still some trees left here in gray along the boundary, which we kept when we were cutting the lots during the construction of the road. I tried to consider that when we were doing this proposal and tried to keep as many trees as possible. I think for the most part we'll be able to keep most of these trees along here, and there may be a couple of trees here that have to go. That will depend on how deep the actual ledge is when we get in there and start to trench for the drain. I have, we have proposed this pond, like I said, so that we have no increase in runoff from in this direction down to Maple Street, and we have a similar flow coming off the site here as we had previous to the development. There were some concerns about some water quality in this area of the subdivision, and what we have proposed is the water will come off of the road. It will come into a water quality treatment unit. Basically, that's like a grit and oil separator. And then we are proposing to bleed off into a rain garden in this area here, where it will treat the runoff, and then it will come out of the rain garden and then flow back into the pond, at which point most of the water in this pond will rely on recharge into the ground versus flowing out of an outlet structure. With the remainder of the flow that's going down to Maple Street, there's still going to be some flow. So we wanted to try to improve on that area of the project also. And that's what's represented up here in this square. This is Warren Drive here. And the drain lines from Warren Drive comes down to a manhole here, and to a manhole here in the existing culvert that used to cross Maple Street, or that crosses Maple Street. This is where the discharge is currently occurring. This discharge point is very close to the 50-foot buffer to the wetland, which is over here. What we wanted to try to do was pull this discharge away from the wetland and try to improve it a little bit. So what we are proposing is to place a manhole in the existing drain line here. From here going to here would be discontinued, and the water from Warren Drive will flow on its own into a discharge point here, which is over 100 feet to the wetland. What we're proposing is a riprap velocity reducer combined with a level spreader, which is basically going to be a small retaining wall, which will allow the water to build up behind it and flow over the top. That's like a waterfall, basically, so that into a rip-wrapped area, which will basically spread the water out instead of having it come down in a very confined area. And we're able to do all of this outside the 50-foot buffer. This will require also your approval, also the Conservation Commission's approval, and we have filed a notice of intent with them on this part of the project. So this here, what you see here, is a cut view or a profile view of what the discharge point is. This is the pipe coming from the street. This is a rip-wrapped. We're going to make it level, and then we're going to have a stone berm to try to reduce the velocity here. And then this is the retaining wall that we're talking about.
How much volume is down there with this layout compared to what's going down there now?
So what we've accomplished is that we have reduced, obviously it varies per storm, but In the 2-year storm, currently you're getting 9 CFS down through that area. We're going to reduce it to 4, so it's more than half. In the 100-year storm, we're projecting, it's 29, and we're talking about 15.
So 9 is overwhelming it. But what's there now? It's overwhelmed. With what volume?
Yeah, right now it's overwhelmed with, I guess it could be 9 CFS. We probably had more than that going down there in those big rainstorms that we had.
Yeah, and that was without the other drainage system
Without the
picking
other
half
drainage
of it out,
system.
yeah.
You've cut the volume pretty much in half, haven't you, Mike?
Yes.
Are you removing the existing outlet pipe that's there now as part of
No,
your
the
reconstruction?
reason we're not doing that is there's this pipe that we were talking about that existed where they tied Warren Street drainage into. It drains a low spot on the other side of the street. So if you got rid of the pipe, this would cause flooding on this side of the street.
So what'll be coming out of the pipe that's there now?
Just
New
what comes
system.
across the road.
That's it?
That's it.
So it
Nothing else
does,
from- Nothing else from Warren Street?
Warren Street's going to be completely disconnected from it. It's
Okay.
going to be on its own
Yeah.
system, if you want to call it that.
so it does traverse Maple. It basically gets to the other side, and there's a culvert that brings it back.
There was a culvert here that came across the road, and the design for Tolls End Farm called for the drainage line out of Warren Drive to connect to it and replace this from where this manhole hit that pipe to the wetland with a bigger pipe. That's what was proposed in the plans. So we're gonna leave it, but we're not gonna use it. It's just gonna take whatever flows across the road.
And John, you've reviewed that in detail, right, as part of the Conservation Commission review?
Yeah, we're about to review the new plan at the hearing, but I've already seen it. And there's minimal extra work in the resource area. And like I said, from what the report says, I think our consultant will tell us in a minute, the volume was cut in half and the water quality is exceeding the state requirements, especially considering this is a critical area. So the requirements are more stringent and they've exceeded those by 8%, 9%, 10%?
Yeah, I think the
80 to 88 or
80,
something?
yeah, right. It was
Okay.
88, I believe, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. So one of the things Mark mentioned was that we were going to allow for us to do what I needed to do on Lot 4. We had to move the building site for Lot 4. And this plan represents Lot 68 is here, and this is Lot 65, 66, and 67 were in there. This is what the lots will look like under this current proposal. So we've shown houses that Pulte builds with grading, and it fits in rather well.
So is this going to be a separate A&R plan, or are you going to incorporate this into the subdivision?
I don't know how the board wants to work that. We could do it under A&R, or we could do it as part of the modification. I've got a plan that,
Do it as part
that's,
of the modification.
you know, the
Can
plan
you
that...
show me where that is on your larger scale plan?
That would be,
So it's right where the throat is? Or?
that would be these lots right here.
Oh.
Remember that loop where
Yeah,
actually one side of that
If
is
I
in
put it
Norfolk and the other half
exactly
is,
the way it
the other
is on
side is
that
in
plan,
Rentham,
it would be like
town
this.
line.
Yeah, right. That's what
So this
confused
is
us,
lot
right? It was
68
upside
right
down,
there.
right?
And this is lot 65 here.
What are the sizes of those new?
They're 20,000 square feet. There was just about enough area left over between those 4 lots to make another one.
Lots to 5 lots.
And that was really why we chose the area.
So the shaded ones are Rentham. You can tell.
So we did get a review from your consultant, and I've looked it over. I haven't really had time to really get into it, but I didn't see anything that was really of major concern to me, anyway, relative to their review.
Well, maybe we could hear from our consultant right now.
Certainly. Do you prefer that I read the comments into the record, or do you want just the highlights?
Yeah. Well,
Just the main points, Steve?
yeah, major ones, not just.
Yeah, I don't want to
not
just
every one.
physically read them all in if that's...
Why don't we have him introduce himself, too?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would make sense. Thank you. Andrew Ogilvy with Beta Group. So we looked at the submittal, the drainage modification submitted by the applicant. And the major things we noticed were, we'd like to see the calculations that were done for the water quality unit that is in place now, that treats the water that goes to the discharge at Maple Street. That was, I believe, approved in the original subdivision plan, but we weren't, those calculations weren't made available to us. We expect they're decreasing the flow by about half. I don't expect there's a problem with that unit. We just would feel comfortable if we could verify that everything is as it should be.
I thought we didn't have them. I thought they didn't exist.
Oh, no, we have that information.
Okay.
There's a storm stepper right at the corner of Maple and Warren.
Right. It should be functioning just fine. I don't expect there's an issue. It's just more of a housekeeping thing. We'd like to see some further detail on the actual construction of the detention basin. I did speak with Mike earlier today, and he indicated that he was happy to provide that detail. He hadn't provided at this point just because he wanted proof of concept before he put too much more into it. The current bioretention system, or the rain garden as it's referred to, he has not taken credit for it as a stormwater BMP. He's using it sort of as a forebay. We suggested that he provide calculations as to what storage is available in that, and that would likely actually decrease his flows that he's showing. He's being conservative in his approach. He could show us what treatment recharge he would get from that rain garden.
That would be right there.
We would suggest that they provide some construction details on how they intend to repair the road, just to make sure that what goes back is what was intended originally. And in terms of the stormwater standards, they have met the standards. There's a couple additional information that we had asked for, some clarifications on some calculations. But in general, what he submitted met the standards, and we didn't have any major concerns.
So I think your comment on the restoration of the road is that, as opposed to doing a trench type of patch, you would prefer
Rather than
to
just do a
go
trench
curb to
patch for the
curb.
pipe itself, we'd prefer to see, given that, it's a new road,
Mhm.
You gonna bring that down to subgrade?
where it's exposed, where they, I think we'd be amenable to maybe them keying in where they haven't excavated, but certainly where they trench.
If I may, guys, I think that I'm gonna put on a limit on the plan, a limit of the exposure of the road, what we're gonna take down. There's gonna be a large amount of work to be done here. We're gonna have to revamp structures, drainage structures in that area. So we're gonna basically just cut the road open and put everything back after we're done.
And the DPW wants to be there to review that while it's all open, correct?
And we had talked about, what opportunity this would give us to look at what's underneath the road,
Yeah.
that type of thing, so.
You gonna fill all the trenches back up with flowable fill?
I don't think they'll have to do that, John. I think that because we're gonna be opening up so much of it, that they will be able to compact that, but we can leave that up to Bob and his.
You get up to the DPW director.
And what was the determination, I guess the DPW had some discussion as far as the camera work on all the underground pipelines, the stormwater?
Well, the last time I spoke with Bob, he said he was satisfied with the road and he doesn't want to go around cutting it open.
Right.
But we did agree to camera the stormwater again prior to top coat.
I think I got an email from him, Jeff, and I think he wants to see that base road sit for 2 years to 3 years, and then do a camera of the drain system, and clean up the catch basin, et cetera, and then do a separate water test on the water lines to make sure there's no leaks. The theory, I think Bob's theory is, after that sitting, it would be then over 4 years, no matter what they fill, that we should have a good idea whether that's stabilized and whether the piping is all in good shape then. So I think he wants to hold off on all that until the road sits 3 or so more years, 2, 3
Yeah,
years?
I had given him the date that we could live with spring 2017, which is essentially 2 years from now, but 3 years from when it's been paved and 4 years from when Warren Drive was paved.
Okay.
And because that's probably the best case of when we would be complete with the construction, so that was reasonable. And then we would, prior to top coat, we could test the water line and we could camera the storm drain line.
Now, on this detention pond, the overflow goes to the adjacent parcel, correct?
That's right, yes.
Now, how large is that adjacent parcel, and does it go directly into wetlands?
No, the wetland is located at the corner of Maple and Park, I believe, is that?
It can't go directly to the wetlands.
Let's see if I have something that
Well, I
might
think
show
there's some
that.
wetlands down there.
Yeah, but it's not going directly into it.
Where does it go through? It go through just into woods?
It's going into riprap, it's gonna be 100 feet off of the wetland line. So the volume going out isn't gonna be able to encroach past that. That's the whole theory of this plan, you know?
I believe the wetland is where my finger is, something like that, to give you some idea of the scale. There's a house here, there's another house here, and I believe, and I'm not sure, there might be another house here that the wetland abuts the side of it.
Is this runoff going to go on those house properties?
Is that going to go onto those properties? Is it going to be, I don't want to hear neighbors saying that their detention basin's flooding their backyards.
Neither do I. So what we did was, in the process of coming up with this design, is in the pre-development, we defined, there's a swale that runs down through here. You can see it in the contours here.
Already existing.
Already existing. So we defined what that flow is from the subdivision before it was ever built, and we tried to keep under those numbers, and then some. So if you look at the calculations, the flow out of the basin itself, like I said in my presentation, most of the water is being infiltrated into the ground. We have less than a CFS coming out of this pond at any point in time up to the 100-year storm, and we have no flow out in the 10 or the 25. So we're trying to get water out of this by going into the ground and actually flowing through the culvert. Hence, the size of the pond is reflected in that.
So how many CFSs going through the swale as it exists now, or existed before you started development?
So we have, in the 2-year storm, there was 2 CFS. We have, obviously, 2 CFS in the 2-year storm. We have 0 coming out of that. I'm sorry, that's the wrong chart. 2 CFS in the 2-year storm, we have 1. 13 in the 100-year storm, we have 7.
Oh, okay.
Now, this is total flow, so this would be not just what's coming out of the pond, but what's going by Lot 5's house, Lot 3's house, and what's below the pond itself is all added up together to come to that number. But these numbers here, as I was telling you, 0, 1, 1 is what's actually coming out of the outlet pipe that's here.
You accounted for the runoff from the houses and the driveways on Warren Drive?
Yes?
How about the elevations with mounding and such for the detention basin versus the adjacent property? Can you give us any feel for relative elevations?
I'm not sure if I'm understanding the question, but the elevation of the bottom of this pond is what's likely going to be 138, 136 is where we're at. On Lot 3, the backyard is at like 144. Same thing with 5, actually. 5's a little bit higher. And obviously down here it's lower, down off the site. It continues down.
Any idea about how much lower that is?
See if I can, 2, 4, 6. There's a pretty good slope that comes down here, so I'm seeing just between here and here, at least 20 feet in elevation, that it's lower.
And in terms of proximity horizontally?
Pretty much the slope it goes across, like this. It's pretty constant across. It doesn't really, except for this first lot, it's actually up a little higher than the woods, probably 6 or 8 feet. And that's also where the well is located for that house.
Okay, so the well is there. And how about the basement of the home? About how far to the detention basin?
It's from the well, it's 200 feet, so I would have to say it's probably 220, 225 to the house. And I believe the cellar floor would be above this discharge point.
How can the cellar
Chairman.
floor be above the discharge point if the land is 20 feet lower?
That was down in here. This house is over here,
Oh,
and
okay.
it's higher in elevation than right here.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, I was going to say, one comment that I had made in the letter that I didn't address, is I don't expect it to be an issue, but we did ask that they provide a mounting analysis to verify that they're not impacting those neighboring properties.
Excellent.
It looked like you also asked them to consider the level spreader at the discharge to prevent channelization. I think I would use stronger language than consider.
Shall.
Fair enough. Yeah, what they've shown is a riprap channel that kind of runs cross contour. And, yeah, a level spreader might be a more effective means of distributing that flow. It doesn't, their calculations show that it shouldn't be that much flow to begin with, but spread out what's there.
Can't hurt to do it.
Right.
Doesn't hurt.
Any other questions from the board? I'm going to open this to the public. If anyone has any questions or comments, could you please identify yourself for the record? Yes. He's got a microphone.
Good evening. My name's Jeff Lovely. I'm an attorney from Foxborough, Mass., and I actually represent Gary Searle and Eileen Siegel, who own one of the lots that's directly adjacent to this Lot 4. Theirs is Lot 3. I have to apologize. I probably have more questions than anything else tonight. I think my clients found out about this on Monday, and then they contacted me, and I've had some opportunity to review a few things, but it's early stages for me. So the first comment that I would have is that this is definitely a matter of concern for my clients and the owners of Lot 5. They negotiated and purchased their lots anticipating that a very nice residence would be constructed on Lot 4. I think the way Pulte does their marketing is that they charge a premium for each lot based on its size, location, et cetera. And in this case, the premium was $85,000 for Lot 3. My clients would strongly prefer to have a house built there rather than a drainage and utility area. That was not the deal that they made. I don't know exactly what went wrong with the original drainage scheme, and I haven't had any opportunity to come in and review any files, but am I understanding that full drainage calcs have or have not been provided?
Tonight.
Yes, they are now available.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so I think we
Based
would-
on this design.
Okay, we would need to sort of review those to make sure that this would resolve the issue. Is this intended to hold water or not? The detention pond on Lot 4.
Oh, you can answer that now.
Just use your microphone,
Use your
please.
microphone.
There's another one here.
Yeah, there's another.
So we have this pond, and the water comes into the pond, and water, during the storm event, water builds up in it. And so the stormwater standards require us to be able to drain the water out of the pond within 72 hours of the storm ending. So we are intending to do that.
So how deep might it get?
So I believe the way it is proposed now, it's 3 feet from the outlet invert to the bottom of the pond. So that, right. Well, during, I shouldn't say max depth. During the height of the storm, it's a little higher than that, but it comes right back down to the 3 feet is what's we're relying on the ground to take.
What is that, what type of storm is that, you should say?
So,
A 100-year storm?
no, it would probably be the 25, John. that we would
25-year
start
storm,
getting
25-year event, every 25
we
years, the
start getting
rainstorm
flow
will...
out of the orifice of the pond. Anything under that would just be sitting in the pond.
To give these folks an idea, what if we had a torrential downpour for 2 days and we had 4 inches of rain, which is not uncommon? How much water would be sitting in that pond and for how long, if you're able to say that?
Can I just interject that when it does rain quite a bit, my backyard is wet. There's standing water in my yard, even at that elevation above where he's talking about this pond.
I've had to reloan because my entire front yard got washed away, it came out of my own pocket. When I asked hopefully to address it, they said that's part of the contour. So I already have a lot 5 right next door. I already have a full washout across my front yard.
You need the microphone.
Not for us, but for the people at home. Thank you. So we're just talking about the washout from the street today without any other adaptation to the water flow across from the top of the street, across Lot 5, which is mine. I've had to replace loam because of a pure washout and just regular torrential downflows. And I've had to replace that on my own when Pulte would not. They say that's the contour of the land. But I can't imagine changing that to increase that flow.
Well, we're going to be asking for a landscape plan for this detention basin when everything is sized properly and completed. So perhaps at that time, we can mention your request to the builder and see what they have to say about replacing it. Just so you know, this initial plan had a basin there. The basin, over the course of the transaction between the old developer and Pulte, was eliminated. The stormwater system was never resized based on the elimination of this basin. And the original basin was approximately 100 by 300 feet. So we noticed an overflow of volume down in Maple Street, did research and found out that the calculations weren't done when the basin was eliminated. So we start this whole process, and we are now that the house that was there, which where the basin was beforehand, is now being eliminated. And I think through our discussions between the Pulte folks and our engineers was that the house physically could not be on there because all of that land was needed to retain the water to make the numbers work.
Yeah, they were originally going to have a house and a basin back there. That was the intent, that was always the plan, until somehow or other that basin vanished.
It's too bad it vanished prior to our purchasing my property.
John, to answer your question, a little over 2.5 feet in a 10-year storm would be in the bottom of the pond.
Did you hear that, folks? Yes. So if we have 4 inches of rain over a couple of days, you're going to have 2 feet of water in that basin for less than 72 hours? Probably 3 days, yep. 3 days. Right. That's a lot more common occurrence rather than a 25-year event, so.
So the based on the topo that I've seen, the back of the Siegel Searle lot is about 248, and I may be off on these numbers, but and the bottom of the pond is 236, yet, and there's a pretty steep slope on my client's property based on the topography, and it still holds water, and I understand that there is a lot of ledge or shale up there. How do we know that this water is going to, is this supposed to leach into the ground, or is it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Actually, the grades behind her house here, the grades,
Yep.
they're actually kind of flat. So I think that's more the reason that she might be doing some ponding or whatever in the backyard here. Is that where it mostly is, in the backyard? Yeah, I've seen the backyard, and it is very
I
flat.
think you're going to have to.
Just grab the second one. There's another one right on the table. Just make sure it's turned on. Just make sure it's on.
Make sure the green light's on.
Thank you.
I really haven't looked at it, but I saw it when they were building it and noticed that the whole backyard there was kind of flat.
If I may, this is a graphic that actually Pulte provided, and it, I'll show it to you. It sort of shows a little bit more starkly what the impact of this detention basin would be on the owners of Lot 3 and Lot 5. This red dotted circle is what's been cleared in anticipation, I believe, of building a house there. And the blue dotted area is what they're going to have to clear to put the detention basin in. So it's going to have a major impact on Lot 3 and Lot 5. And with the, I think the topography of my client's house is that it's sort of in the back, it's a walkout basement, and then it goes up 2 full levels. It's already a lot higher than this. So any landscape proposed to mitigate it, if it's, you know, mitigated with 6-foot trees, well, my client's house is already 20 feet above that. So 6-foot trees are not going to help them very much. But I think this just shows it kind of in all its sort of stark impact on the direct abutters.
I think the situation that we face, and John has invested more time than I think any of us here at the table in this issue, because he also sits on the Conservation Commission, is that the developer, Pulte, they needed to locate a parcel which was at a sufficient elevation to be conducive to the removal of water for a sufficiently long section of Warren Drive, and so it doesn't really leave many options. So I think at the end of the day, something really needs to happen, I think, at that location. I guess, you know, there's a question as to how much it can be modified, perhaps, in terms of landscaping and some of these other things, but I think, I don't know that there's an alternative. I mean, there's, you know, gravity is a funny thing, you know, works one way, and we're not going to change that.
Mark, can I ask you a question? When we get this drainage all wrapped up, and we come up with a landscape plan, can you bring into account the effect that this change is having on those 2 abutters and come up with a plan that makes everybody happy?
Do you have that plan, Mike? Mr. Chairman, if I may. So first of all, I did meet with the owners of Lot 3 and Lot 5 earlier this week. So I tried to give them a courtesy of the proposal of what we were proposing, and I appreciate Eileen's and Peter's comments and concerns and their attorney, Jeff. So I do appreciate your concerns, appreciate your comments, and I just wanted to let you know that this is a perfect forum to express those, and we do care about our customers.
So you're going to make them happy?
Well, so there's only so much I can do, right? So I will try. I'm trying, but so what I wanted to just show to the board is one of the concerns that came up at our meeting was the view of the aesthetics of the basin. So I worked with Huntress Associates. He's a landscape architect we've used in the past, and I explained some of their concerns of their view as they drive in off of Warren Drive of the neck of Lot 4, if you will, and then also certainly the rain garden, which is located adjacent to their homes, and then the third aspect of the design is really the large basin. And so I tried to work with our landscape architect and express their concerns and come up with a screening buffering exhibit that I could present to Eileen and her husband and Peter and his wife, and as a way to mitigate the aesthetics of the basin if they didn't like that. So what we've proposed is some heavy evergreen screening with some ornamental trees to break it up along the rear. So right now there is a proposed 4-foot-high black vinyl chain link fence, which we find really disappears in the woods in a setting like that. But to break up the fence, we had discussed it at our meeting. I proposed putting these evergreen trees in front of the fence to break up the fence line and also break up the view of the basin. And same for behind Lot 5. We had a similar line of screening plantings, and then also along their side lot line towards the rear. So essentially, you can see what I'm doing is trying to the best of my ability, block their view of the fence and block their view of the basin.
But they're up 16 feet.
Yeah, which means they're looking into the canopy of all of the woods that are between their home and the basin I mean.
Do you understand that whole basin, if you want, if you have the time, I would happy to show you a basin around that size that I built in Rentham over off of 140 that's in existence now. And, I mean, the level of extent is up to you to make them happy, make the board happy after all this nightmare that's been caused, but you can fill that you don't have to do the perimeter with a fence and evergreen trees. You can take plantings, wetland trees, and make that whole basin a focal point. So you have people with benches that want to come sit around there. You can have birdhouses in that basin. You can have a bunch of things to make that thing a focal point, which I have done in the past, to make that really work and bring the people to there. So rather than negative, it becomes a positive and a plus to their home.
So,
But it costs money.
Well, yeah, so one of the other things I'd offer, and I'm sure I'm just going to beat them to the punch, is one of the other things they expressed is, they certainly don't want this to become a walking trail, and now all of a sudden, this becomes a focal point, and you're encouraging people to come back here, because one of the alternative arguments is now that there's no house there, and there's no driveway here, and there's no homeowner here who can do whatever they want with their lot anyways, and their children and their family and their guests, there's a side argument that having a basin back there may be better than having a neighbor behind you.
I guess it's
But
perception.
I'm not here
It's
to
a
have that
perception,
argument.
right?
It's a
But I do know
perception,
for a
for
fact, I do know for a fact, if you don't have a limit on putting 10 or 12 blueberry bushes in the middle of that basin, we can come up with a plan, and they either Mike's for,
I would use a landscape architect.
very good, because I'm talking, by the size of that basin, from what I've experienced, I'm talking in the range of a couple hundred plants and trees
I
to make that
understand.
work.
So what I've proposed so far is there's 114,
But you wouldn't need the black fence,
but
right?
I think the black fence is there because of the 3 feet of water for.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
regulation we
days.
have for
Is
safety,
it a
yeah.
regulation?
Yeah.
But I think that could be pretty much covered by the starting point that Mark has here, but you could make that inside. You could make that a park-like area with plants that'll survive having 2 feet of water for 2 days.
yeah, I'm
It costs money.
I'm not arguing. So
All right.
just let me step back. So this was not a final plan. So the reason I stood up was just to express to the board that we've met with them. We did hear their concerns with aesthetics, and we did pretty quickly come up with a screening plan to start showing our responsiveness. And then there is a note on Mike's official plan that he submitted to you that says, once the basin is in its final state, we'd be happy to present the board with a planting landscaping plan. So we always intended to do that, but we didn't want to do that before we had this, we had your concurrence.
I
and we
think
had this
that's
meeting.
great. We may be on a different page of what the landscaping plan might look like. In that basin, how long and what elevation are the slopes at in that basin?
The basin matches the topography, the bottom of the basin generally matches the topography that's there now.
Coming
There's
up the
two,
sides.
the size is
Yes.
3-on-1.
So the
But
difference
the
on the
two
side
contours
slope from
here
the
match
bottom. Side slope to the top here, or the bench, is how much? 3 feet. 8, 10 feet, coming from the
From
start of
here?
the slope up?
To here?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not even that. It's,
It's 5 or 6.
Point being is the plants that, the trees that won't survive in the bottom of the base of the water, you can plant them on that side slope or on the bench to give them the more proper coverage.
Because the bottom is sloped, John, you know, the depth of water at that end of this pond isn't that deep.
And that's what we got to work with.
Right.
Right.
And just as a side note, Pulte, Mark's not taking credit for a small issue, a small thing here where he instructed me to keep 25 feet of natural trees between 5 and 3 along that property line. I didn't bring the pond that far up the slope for that reason.
I personally think you've done a great job designing drainage in a street that's already built out.
Thanks.
And I'm happy to hear that Mark is going to help the two neighbors make this right. And it can be, believe me, it can be made right. It's just a matter of the will and spending the funds to do it. So I think you folks should be part of the process when it maybe come before us when it gets to that stage to go over the landscape plan and get a feel of what they're offering to do.
Give me the addresses to places.
Yeah, I will.
So, thank you.
Go right ahead.
Just to address, my name's Peter Crowley. I'm the owner of property in number 5, 225 Warren Drive. And I appreciate the comments about working with the butters. You can make it more beautiful. You can put in plants. A park-like area, I have been concerned about just what the, I like colors, the traffic would be. But when we bought these properties, these were the prime locations that we sought. We didn't want anything along the road. In fact, we actually asked to purchase this property, and it was not opened by the town. Shouldn't there have been a disclosure somewhere that that wasn't open because it wasn't either buildable, wouldn't perk, or there was a potential for a water basin there? If there was a previous design, shouldn't that have been disclosed to those that were?
In the real world, it should have been, but we didn't find out about any of this until 6 weeks ago.
And I didn't find out about any of this in 2 hours ago.
Exactly. Exactly.
You know, moving my 3 kids and wife and now dog to this point where we thought we were going to have $1 million house next to us with our sub-$1 million but pretty darn nice houses we're proud of, now to have a pond, as they call it, a swamp, that I'm 16 feet. That's standing on my backyard deck, second story. I can see clear into the house that's over here. So now you're going to clear out another 50%, another acre and a half here. And so we're concerned. We're concerned. I guess I wasn't concerned on Monday, but I'm more concerned now, just even hearing that there have been surprises to the board as well as other concerns. So if my front yard gets washed out from this house down across, and now there's going to be this cute little rain garden, well, that's a nice name for a decontamination or a water purification system, right? That's right between my driveway and their driveway. Could that be moved? I don't know. 4-foot fence. My child's 4 feet. He's a boy. He's going to want to go in there. He's a good kid. We won't do that, but that's a safety issue too. So there's a lot more questions we have. So we're absolutely open to talking to Pulte, but again, Pulte will take a shortcut if they can. And so we're hoping.
Your attorney?
I don't have an attorney here.
Okay.
I'm just on my own. Thanks.
Well, why don't both of you put down a list of issues to the planning board, and we can address them at one of our next meetings,
I'll sum up
including
my thought.
everything.
I'll sum up my thought and sit down. The property value is gone down with this just being on a piece of paper, right? If this were the prime location for that entire neighborhood, and we're very proud to be there, without that house there, with a pit, a pond, a swamp, with a fence around it, my property value's decreased. And nothing's been done yet. It's just on paper.
I guess the question, does everyone understand that the situation that exists right now, it can't continue from a wetlands standpoint in terms of damage that's being done to the wetlands, so it can't. I mean, that's the bottom line. It has, something needs to be done. We're already at that point where something needs to be done. It's just a question of, what the options are. I'm not sure I see, from a macro standpoint, I don't know that I see an option to what's proposed. However, I mean, it's certainly realistic to think that modifications could be made to mitigate the effect on you folks, and then it really becomes a matter between you and Pulte, not so much you and the planning board.
Who's going to require them to make these modifications? I mean, we can ask as much as we want, and they can promise as much as they want, but essentially, again, they've told us that they're going to have a...
We approve their design.
Okay.
We can write it into our decision, which is
All
why I
right.
think John's saying give us a list,
Exactly.
and then we'll try
I
to...
think that'd be very helpful. I think another concern is that having 3 feet of water standing in our backyard for possibly 3 days is going to be potentially, I'm a veterinarian, there's a public health issue with that. Eastern equine encephalitis, Western equine encephalitis, there's a horse farm in the middle of all this too. I think that's a big problem. And again, we don't want it to be a public way. This is our backyard. We don't want people walking on our backyard. I'd like to see it as beautiful as possible. I think your idea is great with bluebird boxes and blueberry bushes and all sorts of things. That would be wonderful, but we can't impel them to do that. If you can, that would be great. But again, I think there's some health issues that need to be addressed as well.
And the other, I was a little bit unclear about what Mr. Weddleton was saying. We don't want, from our perspective, to have something approved and then come in and talk about the mitigation. Our strong preference would be to have whatever the package is.
Well, that's what I said.
Okay.
Captured
Show
in our
up- I
didn't know
decision,
if it was a
absolutely.
two-phase thing.
Show up with all, as I told Mr. Crowley, show up with all your concerns on paper, so as we meet, we get a chance to review those, and we try to incorporate one plan that incorporates everything that you folks believe you deserve. And once this is done and signed with the Pulte folks, it's all bonded, so it's sure to be done.
That's a fair approach.
And just for the record, I mean,
As long as it's legal for us to require these things.
Yes.
Yeah. There's limits.
just for the record, I mean, we have our engineering consultant here. In terms of the drainage basin, there's nothing unusual in terms of the design of this basin, in terms of the amount of time the water would be retained in the basin, et cetera. It meets
requirement for 72 hours is in part so there's no standing water, particularly to address the mosquito issue, so that you don't create a breeding ground. It's a fairly standard design for a detention basin. To be honest, it's over-designed. They've tried to provide as much treatment and as much infiltration as they can, and they exceed the standard in that regard. So to that, I hesitate to say this, but to that end, the basin's larger than it needs to be. It could be modified.
By how much?
I hate to put a number on it. Half, maybe?
Half? Half's a big number.
You think you could make that? I don't know. There's two things in addition to that.
Awesome, Mike, you get that?
You'd be able to put the house back there.
Mid-Bucks Day.
Let me stop.
What I want to, before I,
practice field gets so big, so if it's half that size, it's...
well, let me clarify my remark. I didn't mean to jump the gun. They have made an attempt to use the natural contour that's there now as the bottom of the basin, so that the width of the basin ends up being much larger than it could be, were they to cut that down and shrink it in.
The reason...
So there's two approaches. You keep the natural topography as much as you can and have a wider footprint. You dig out the bottom so that instead of just the lower half of the basin holding water, the whole basin holds water.
Deeper.
So in
it's
order
deeper than
to
3
order to
feet.
accomplish that, we would have to raise the pond more than dig it in, because we've got groundwater issues that we're trying to separate ourselves from. So, and of course, the mounding thing that we just kind of discussed.
Right.
So I'm going to take a look at it and see maybe if I can do that. And I do have a question for the abutters, if I could. Pulte did provide a 25-foot buffer. And so in that buffer, if you can picture this, the land's sloping down. I've got 25 feet that I'm holding the natural grade on. If I were to make, and then it just drops down 4 or 5 feet into this basin and creates that impression that it's a basin. If I were to make that slope more gradual by coming up closer to your house instead of a sharp drop, would that be something that you'd be interested in? So I guess what I'm trying to tell you is it's a basin, but it looks more like a gradual slope to get down there instead of looking at a pond or something like that. Mm-hmm.
It would.
Okay.
This 25-foot barrier that you're talking about is now clear cut.
Microphone.
That 25-foot barrier you're talking about right now is all clear cut. The stumps and everything else has been clear cut for a year and a half. And outside of our property line, it's all clear cut. So everything that you're seeing outside of my property box is all clear cut.
There's not a lot of vegetation there at this moment. The trees that are marked, I mean, I have to say the deconstruction crew is very aggressive, and they cut down a lot of trees, putting in that original driveway down Lot 4 when there was supposed to be a house there, and they have already ripped up a lot of the trees. There's stumps, rocks.
Why don't you go stake out the basin? Why don't you stake out the basin and put some elevations on the stakes? So we can, maybe the board can go out and take a look physically at how big the basin is,
Yeah.
what the elevation is. Then if these folks and you want to talk about changing the basin to make it, more doable, at least you have something you're looking at squarely to go from. Does that work for you guys?
Yes.
Okay.
That would be great.
Okay,
Smaller would be better.
I understand.
Trees left behind would be better.
I understand. Yep.
It sounds unusual for us to be considering, not being pleased that he was being conservative in over-design.
Yes.
I didn't say anything about not
No,
liking that whole
but
thing.
our engineer said it could maybe.
That's why I said I
Designed
hesitate
quite
to
so.
say it. I mean, in the
We're
attempt
okay
at water
with it.
quality, they've done an admirable job, but they maybe have a little more than they need to.
Don't get too crazy about it.
I'm not. It
You know.
appears that that's the case, but it really isn't, and I'll explain to Angie when we get into it.
Okay.
Anybody else? Yes.
Evening, everybody. Joe Sebastiano, 38 Maple Street. So I'm at the end of Warren Drive across the street. I heard it earlier, and it sounds like it's going to be done, is that existing culvert will still be in place doing what it does now? Yeah.
That's correct.
Right, because, in fact, I didn't know the drain, the original basin was out of the plan either. I didn't know so much water was coming down. But water has been an issue, and the culvert being there has been a good thing for us. We've had the flood situation, and we've had the neighbors, trying to help us get water in that direction. So keeping that in place is definitely important. So I'm glad to hear that. Sounds like it's going to be a while before that gets done, though, when they shut that off, though, because the streets aren't going to touch for a few years.
We would have to wait for the frost to get out of the road, I believe, before Bob would allow us to go into the road and cut it.
Yeah, and
Actually, what's
I
really
just wanted to reinforce the fact that water has been kind of a concern now at the bottom of Warren Drive. Well, it wasn't Warren Drive years ago, but obviously water being a concern, that takes care of my concern. I know there's a problem that needs to be solved here, and obviously that's why we're all here.
Well, with this design, there's going to be half the water going down to Warren Street.
As I understood, I heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I understand, like, they still have to work out the mitigation stuff, but I just wanted to reinforce the fact that that culvert was there, before all this, and that it was there for a reason.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? All right. So are we going to continue this to our next meeting, or do you need more time? Our next one is on the 3rd.
Tuesday.
March 3rd, okay.
March 3rd is right. May I ask a question, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman? And I don't know if it's during this meeting or as soon as you continue it, because the lot release request isn't really part of this open discussion. But at some point before I leave, I wanted to talk to the board about our lot releases again.
Okay, well, wait until after we've dealt with this part.
Great.
Okay, so.
March 3rd would be great.
Before you continue, there was a third item which sounds kind of administrative, the deed.
Town council's reviewing it.
Nobody has any comments on that?
Town-
Oh.
Wait for town council.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're
Okay.
waiting for town council.
Okay.
Okay, did somebody else say that they had a question or something? Yeah.
My name is George Smith. I'm with the Rentham Planning Board. I just wanted to be on the record as attending this hearing, okay? I found it very informative. We have, of course, the other end of the subdivision in Rentham, so we have our issues as well, so thank you.
So we want to continue this to March 3rd at 7:45? Somebody going to make that motion?
Move to continue the public hearing for Toils End Farm Road Fox Run subdivision to March 3rd at 7:45 PM.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Wow. Yeah, all right. So we also have a estate lot special hearing. Send it over. I don't even know where this parcel is on Marshall Street. I kind of.
Anybody else want to go?
Yeah.
Isn't it the one? I think you'll recognize it.
Is it right next to the subdivision that's in there?
Yeah.
50%. Really? I didn't really get to finish my thought. Because he has a pitch, if he just quietly, he could...
Oh, it's the Audubon parcel?
CPC purchase.
Sure he is.
Now I got it. How you doing, Gino? I haven't seen you in a long time.
I was here last time, but you weren't here.
Oh. Oh, that wasn't the last time. Been a couple of meetings since then.
Oh, okay.
That was back in July. I think it was July.
No, but you're saying you
No,
were
the
here.
very last one.
He was saying he was here in January.
January 2nd.
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh, was he here?
You weren't.
Oh, I wasn't. That's right. Oh, that's when I was sick. That's
Yeah.
when. And when he called me up, I couldn't even talk.
It's a new sick.
I'm still. Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Still sick.
It's a cold?
Did you have the flu or something?
Don't know what it is. Some sort of a virus or something that just doesn't seem to want to go away. It started on December 10th.
Ooh.
Well,
Whoa. John, you're up here. Can I do a chewing gum? That's the question. What did you stay
You
on
happy?
Pine Street? I had
It's
no
going
part of
pretty well.
American Building development.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm tiptoeing here because I don't want to offend the board or annoy you guys, but the truth of the matter is that we've made a significant investment in the engineering of this basin, and also there's a significant investment in the construction of the solution. And the lot releases that we don't have is causing us, which is fine, we've talked about this for months, but it's causing us great harm and, not really to Pulte, but to our subs, to our employees, to the workers on the site who are essentially going home now, because there's really nothing for them to do. So, as we work through this process and we work through the notice of intent process, I'm continuing to ask that the board consider releasing some more lots. It doesn't have to be all of them, but, it's difficult to do business when you don't have any lots to sell. And certainly, John, I'll be whining to the Conservation Commission for a few more building permits as well, but that's...
It's a fine line that you whine.
What?
It's a fine line that you whine with some of the members, but I'm sympathetic to that. But the next meeting is March 3rd, and you're certainly not doing any excavation currently
Right. So we
with 3 feet of snow.
Right, so we don't have any lots, so our...
You mean you don't have lots available to pre-sell?
And it's hard to sell a home to somebody when they say, when can I move in? And you say, well, I can't build on it, it's not
Oh,
released.
It's the
need a
microphone, Mark.
We're getting the hand.
So it's like, it's stopped, that's the difficulty, so, and, I mean, in theory, lot releases can be substituted, right? So right now, the lots are under a planning board covenant, and at any point, the planning board's covenant should be allowed to be substituted for a alternative form of surety, which is a surety bond, which, we have in place, and based on the cost to complete that the previous or the current, that Mr. Houston and his firm did, is the bond that's in place for the subdivision actually exceeds the amount of work that's remaining, and so that's why I'm having this discussion. There's 14 lots left to be released. There's 14 lots in our request. There's 5 more on a cul-de-sac we haven't built. And I'm asking the board if you would consider releasing a certain number of those lots tonight.
My only concern is that, a bond is one thing, but I'm not sure that it's a substitute for the lots, because I think we're at a point where if we view the bond as the lever, if you will, for the board, it potentially puts us in a position between Pulte and the aggrieved abutters, the folks here that were expressing concerns. I would rather that Pulte work directly with those folks, and in a few weeks' time, it's probably not going to take too much longer, I wouldn't think, to come to some consensus here as to what needs to be done so that we have a plan that we can approve, and then we can proceed with the larger subdivision in terms of the next plot releases. That's just me personally, as opposed to that potentially festering here any longer than it already has.
Well, I'm hoping that we only need one more meeting
Me too.
to deal
Yeah.
with this.
Me too, yeah.
That's what we're hoping for.
Okay. Well, I'm on the record for, asking again, right? So I can go back and tell my bosses that I asked.
Yes, you can.
No, but seriously, thank you.
Okay.
It's so late tonight.
Okay, Marshall Street, great property, an estate lot special permit hearing.
Notice
Yep.
is hereby given that in accordance with Mass General Law, Section 40A and the Norfolk zoning bylaws E2H, that a public hearing will be held on Thursday, February 5th, 2015, at 8:30 PM in Room 124 at the Norfolk Town Hall, 1 Liberty Lane, Norfolk, Mass, relative to an estate lot application for property located on Marshall Street in Norfolk, Mass. The applicant is Alan R. Gray, and the property is located in the R3 zoning district. Reference Assessors Map 19, Block 71, Lot 1, showing a 176,656 square foot parcel. A copy of the plan, application, other miscellaneous information is available for public inspection in the office of Norfolk Planning Board during regular office hours.
All right, if you want to identify yourself and,
Take a microphone.
yeah, take a microphone and talk us through your plan.
Make sure little green light's on, please.
Frank Splain, representing the applicant. This evening is and Rich Leslie of Bay Colony Group. Again, the property we're talking about is on Marshall Street. The property Mr. Gray owns contains just over 5.5 acres with 400 feet of frontage. What we're proposing to do is one lot would be the estate lot with approximately 4.28 acres and just over 153 feet of frontage, and a conforming Lot 2 with 1.28 acres and 246 feet of frontage. Again, we're asking for a special permit for Lot 1 as an estate lot under Section E2H of the zoning bylaw. As I'm sure the board knows, an estate lot requires 3 times the minimum lot size. In this case, it's 165,000 square feet of land. Again, we're providing over 186 square feet of land. At least 50 feet of frontage must be provided, and we're providing, again, over 153 feet of frontage. As you can see on the plan, there is no building location. The reason for that is Lot 1, the estate lot, is under agreement with Audubon Society to be purchased as a part gift, part sale from the Grays to Audubon. Once Audubon purchases the lot, there's going to be a restriction placed on it for the benefit of the town that does not allow any buildings on the lot. So we haven't shown any buildings on the estate lot. So the setback requirements and things like that are not being shown on that. There's no wetlands on either one of those lots, and the required circle and access would be off of the frontage. But again, no building will be on that lot.
Gino, do they have to create an estate lot, or can they just create a parcel to sell?
Yeah, good question. They need to create an estate lot because to create the value that's going to be the gift to Audubon, the
Oh.
partial gift. So that's the reason for create. That was my very first question on this. That exact same thing, so.
That's correct. Originally, when we were looking at this parcel, we could have done two A&R lots.
Mhm.
200 feet of frontage going right back, but Audubon wanted as much land as possible. So as you can see, the A&R lot, the conforming lot, has about the minimum amount of area it needs and plenty of frontage. So we're trying to give Audubon as much of the land as possible. And to do that, the estate lot is
Does that other lot comply with zoning?
It does, yes.
Anyone have any questions?
Was this at the town meeting? This land?
Yeah. You used community preservation funds?
Audubon's here.
Here's a familiar face.
Yeah, Charlie Wyman with Mass Audubon. So town meeting, yes, very generously voted to purchase a conservation restriction on this property almost a year and a half ago now, or a year and 3 months. And that was, at that point, we were hoping that the additional funds we needed would come from a conservation partnership grant from Environmental Affairs. That didn't come through, and so we had to sort of step back, retool, and fortunately there's another program called the Conservation Land Tax Credit Program, which this property qualifies for and is helping to make up the difference that allows us to proceed.
So the bigger the value, the greater the tax benefit.
Yes, yes.
And was the initial thing in front of town meeting for the entire lot 1 and 2 to be?
No, even at that
always just
stage,
lot-
we were focused just on Lot 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a conservation restriction going to be put on this lot, or is that document already drafted up?
It has been drafted and is at the state at Environmental Affairs right now for final review, but it's been reviewed by Town Council.
So it's going to be held by the Audubon Society?
No, Audubon will own the property and manage it. It will be held by the town. The conservation restriction will be held by the town of Norfolk.
So Gino, we still need this note on the plan then, in your comment number 8, that we need information imposing a restriction so that this cannot be presented for building permit because it's missing data on the plan for buildable lot.
Right.
Okay. Do these folks have a copy of that?
You should.
I'm sorry, what was that? Yeah.
There's just, from our consultant, you're missing some of the information required for an estate lot for a building permit, but since there's going to be a conservation restriction, all he's saying is that a note be put on the plan that before approving a building permit, you must come back to the planning board. But since you're not going to be getting a building permit, in the interim there's going to be a constant restriction on, it then becomes a moot point. So in the meantime, that note would be put on just to, or the note will be put on our condition, right, Gino?
It'll be a condition of
In our
the
condition.
special permit.
Just to
yeah.
show that you can't go, because the missing information is, on this.
Location,
Yes.
driveway access.
You got it,
Yep.
yep. Okay.
So do we want to vote on this tonight, or do you want to wait until we get the, the edited plan back?
Well, the note's good. The
Or
note's
doesn't
gonna,
something have to be added? Did you say something had to be added? Isn't that what you were just talking about?
it's gonna be on our permit. On the permit we write
oh,
up. The restrictions will be on
Not
the permit.
drafted at this point.
Oh, okay. So you see no problem with it the way it's drafted?
No,
Plan.
the plan is fine,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Everybody okay with it?
First, we have to close the hearing.
Okay. Well,
I'm going to
Did we ask,
move
did we ask
to...
about abutters? Did we ask?
Oh, yeah,
Oh.
we should.
we should, yes. Are there any abutters here for this? Oh, there are, okay, yes.
Kevin and Barbara Cuzzy at 4 Audubon Trail. I don't know if it's the right time or not, but what's going to happen to the other piece of property? Is it for sale or?
It is a marketable lot. What will happen eventually
It's the only question I have.
Oh. Looked like there were a lot of questions here.
I'm gonna butter, I spoke to them, I don't have any questions.
Oh, okay. All right. You gonna make your motion?
Oh, move to close the public hearing for, what are we calling this? The estate lot application on Marshall Street.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Do we approve?
And I move to accept the application to create an estate lot and Lot 2, located on Marshall Street, by Alan R. Gray, as submitted.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. All we have to do is sign. Is there anything else on here that we can do? Do you want to look at the Cody Animal Hospital thing?
We got an email on that from last,
Oh, yeah.
last meeting. Yeah, it's quite different.
Quite different.
Quite different than what was presented to us.
Really?
Yes.
Because now,
Bait.
there's,
Big
the
bait.
bait has got the
Big
big,
bait sign.
yeah, they got the
Yeah, the
lead.
bait sign
I
is
saw
huge.
that,
And
yeah.
why didn't that come in front of us? Shouldn't the bait sign permit be coming in front of us? 'Cause it's,
Is it already there?
Is it
Because
already
that might
there?
already be there.
I don't think it was already
I
there.
haven't been down there. The bait sign's always been big, but I don't know if it's this sign.
I don't think it's already there.
I was just down there today. I was at Mitch's.
Yeah, but is there,
I told you, I said, I'm on the planning board. I don't know whether told you you couldn't change your sign.
at which point you just got charged?
No,
how
no,
much
no,
more?
no, They don't mind having that on there.
Is bait, what, did you?
You know what
You
sign
know
is there
if
right
the
now?
sign is?
Do you
I
recall?
just drove by it. I don't notice it.
Okay.
So in
There's
other,
no new sign over there.
so in other words, the decision
There's
is
no new
invalid.
sign,
The
it's
It's
the
not
old
decision,
valid.
the
It's-
decision stated that we were.
The bait
we-
sign.
that
Which one?
The bait.
The sign shall be presented to Design Review Board for its approval prior
It's
to
got-
installation.
you've got trees
If
now.
approval is not obtained, the applicant shall return to the planning board to
Got
discuss
trees,
alternative
Christmas
remedies.
Oh,
So we do have that as a condition.
So in other words, the basic premise of the sign is no longer valid.
It's not anywhere near what she presented to us that night, but the
So-
question is, has she gone to the Design Review Board?
I think I sent it to them. I don't recall getting a response from them, though.
I mean, I would think she needs to come back to
There
this
it
board and
is.
present.
need bait.
With the teeny little Cody pet
Yeah,
at
there
the
you go.
bottom.
Yeah.
So did we close that hearing, or did we keep that open?
We did close
But
it.
but it was for a
But
certain
it was such a
design, which is
different-
now, you know,
Her sign was gonna go up here.
yeah.
Really?
And, yes, and it was
Yeah.
gonna primarily be the logo of the animals.
Yeah.
With the Cody pet underneath it or above it or something like that. And we went on and on, is that exactly what the sign's gonna look like? And she said, oh, my sign guy won't draw it up until I know if I can get approval for the sign. And we said, well, we'll
Yeah,
give you
I
approval,
remember,
but we wanna see the design before it goes up. And so then this email comes, and
Yeah, it
this
was-
is the sign
yeah,
now.
yeah,
That is
yeah.
not there now, that's not the way, that's
Yeah,
a,
it's- I
certainly
don't
not
think so.
yellow.
That's a
Yeah,
graphic.
There is
yeah.
a yellow sign there.
but it's
Yeah,
not
but it's not that
It's not
brilliant.
that
It's-
big.
it can't
That's
be
been
that brilliant.
photoshopped, that's
No,
absolutely.
there's a sign there right now. I just went to Eaglebrook this week.
Oh, sure, and you didn't call us,
It
nice.
was lunch. It was great.
I didn't know.
Anyway, there's a sign there. It says "need trees" or "got trees." I can't remember what the phrase exactly was, but I said, "Oh, nice replacement." And it's bright yellow, just
And
the same thing.
We were
Black
worried about
letters.
the animals in Pondville.
Right?
How do you think they're going to feel about the fish on looking for the worm?
It's gonna be kind of eerie for them.
So,
So the so you said, So what Michelle's getting at is there a need for review?
I don't
that-
think so. Jeez, look, it's like three
Review
words.
of what? Not the yellow sign or the blue
Well,
sign?
my question is, why isn't the yellow sign coming before
Yeah,
us?
I know.
Yeah,
that
that's
was
the
my
one that
question.
should be.
question.
Yeah, right.
I
Yeah,
mean,
right.
first of all, what she came to us for, in my opinion, is null and void. It's a completely different approach. Second of all,
She came to you for the off-premises.
for the off-premises,
her-
but in a totally different location.
Wasn't it like that little one on the front lawn? I thought it was a small one on a front lawn.
She was putting her
It was.
sign right in this place,
She was
yeah.
going to be in the need bait, I thought, spot.
Yeah, that was what
Yeah,
she
that
was
was- I mean,
doing.
said another way, if the bait shop just went ahead and did that without coming to the
Yeah,
board,
then
that
they-
wouldn't be legitimate to
Nope.
just do that.
They would be in
without-
violation,
Yeah, they
right?
would be in violation, so somebody needs to come before the board.
Oh, it's a zoning violation, that would be the zoning official.
Or, yeah, if they take that tact as opposed to coming to the board and getting the proper permits, yeah,
Yeah. Because they didn't come to the board, it becomes a zoning violation,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that person has to deal with it.
But the good news is that sign's not up, so.
When you say that sign, what sign?
Need bait.
Need bait is not got trees.
It's now got trees or
Right,
need
so it
trees.
says need
It's
bait,
gonna
so.
be need bait pretty soon.
Yeah. Once the weather clears up, it'll be,
Apparently, we don't need to be baited.
Something's fishy, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
or need
And,
approval,
And the poor pet hospital thing is just,
I know, it's like,
buried.
yeah.
Nothing.
What pet hospital?
No
Did you
one
see
see it.
pet hospital? I didn't see a pet hospital.
Huh?
Procedurally, how do you want to do it?
pass that back to you.
Well, I mean, we have to let Kate Pillsbury know that it appears to be completely different than what was presented before the board. So, we're gonna have to deny it, right? Because it's not the same as what she presented, right?
Well, you can give her that option.
Yeah, I mean, you could deny it and encourage a reapplication or some way of putting it on the basis.
It wasn't designed, but she just described
Then we can waive the fee and waive the fee, yeah.
How about if I, well,
They already
how about we take this approach before we just deny? Say to her, this is not approvable,
They closed it.
and have her come back with something that is approvable.
Well, when,
But it's.
we have a deadline on this.
But-
When does this have to be
Wait a
done?
minute, she's not controlling the need bait sign, she's only controlling the little blue sign.
But it says above the need bait sign, proposed 4x8. A proposed sign 4x8.
Someone's gonna come to us with that
Make it a
proposed
condition
sign.
in the permit.
Yeah, I would put a big X across the top and say, that's not approved. Or a circle with a line through it, whatever.
So in other words, her sign either goes on the existing sign for trees or whatever it is, and she comes to us
That's what she
alone-
proposed.
That's what she
alone,
said.
Or
Yes.
she comes back, maybe there's co-applicants or whatever, to deal with the whole sign issue here, because
Hers was going.
I don't know that she can submit a design which has a component that is a zoning violation.
This is a tag-along.
basically.
Yeah.
That's what's happening.
Yeah, they're tagging along, and it's like, no, you can't.
Hers was supposed to
Yeah.
go under the
Could you
Robbins floral.
call? That would be fine.
No, I thought it was supposed to replace Robin's Floral, like
So did
that
I.
one did.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
maybe
what
it
she
was.
said.
Oh, maybe, that's right. 'cause
That
she
was the
gonna
impression
be
I-
bait.
She was gonna be the need bait.
Yes.
Yeah, up the
Yeah,
top.
that was my impression too, that the sign was gonna go away, hers was gonna go in its place. And in fact, we talked about a higher square footage of the sign than what we normally approve, and I
Because it was an
believe,
existing structure.
yeah, and I believe the board said that makes sense, because you
Because
you
it's
should,
there now.
you shouldn't have to shrink it.
Right. And the only reason we allowed it to be bigger was
That's what
because
she
it was
had,
there now.
that's what she had existing at 242.
Wow.
So we need
That
one
would've been very
plan,
similar
one
to-
design, okay, which this board can approve. And if it involves multiple parties, then they need to come before the board.
That's another application, or a re-review of this same application that gets modified, if that's even possible, I'm not even sure at this point.
What's the date? The date is January 6th. How long do we have to hold this
Oh,
before
yeah,
we
you
have to
guys
sign it,
already
Betsy?
voted to approve it,
Yeah, you
subject to
approved
DRB.
a sign, yeah.
And I drafted a
It was
decision.
a- it was a
So what
different
we're saying
design.
is that condition hasn't been met.
Right.
So
So
we're
Yes.
presenting it based on that condition, conditional approval.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure that's gonna be approved by the design review board.
That's what I thought.
What, need bait?
I'm guessing.
Oh.
I'm just guessing if the cloud on the canopy of the gas station is a problem.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you're gonna have to let her know that that it was conditionally approved, and the design has changed, that she's gonna have to come back before the board to explain it.
Which is what the condition says. She has to return to the planning board to discuss alternate remedies.
Now, the thing is, when we close the public hearing, she can come back and talk, but we may have to have another public hearing.
Modification, maybe.
No, we'd have to vote on whether it's major or minor.
Right.
Once we know what the remedy
Do
is.
do we do we do this before she goes to design
How do we modify
review?
a decision we have? I guess
Well,
we
we
did.
can also
I guess we-
have Betsy just send a note to design review asking if they reviewed the sign.
Yeah. I'm just thinking in terms of process and what's the appropriate process? Do we send them to design review first, get a recommendation, and then come back to the planning board?
So I think Andrew's right. What we have in front of us is a decision we already
Oh, yeah.
approved. We
You
gotta
did.
get this decision in the book so that then we move on the decision whether it's a major or minor modification to it. So this is our first order of business, and then I think we get them in front of design review board and then back to us.
Yeah, there's a slight chance we can convince the applicant that the previous picture that she painted for us is what she needs to get accepted by the owner of the property, so that she can put that up.
Yeah, I don't think, in terms of your question, unless that was rhetorical, I don't think you have to wait for design review
No.
to comment on that.
Okay.
Because that's, the board isn't happy with it.
Okay.
I think at the primary level, the interested parties need to be part of the process from the beginning, right? You can't have
Including the
one party or the
landowner.
other come here and they want to have a sign for two different businesses. I mean, so whether that's one application or two applications, I don't know. Yeah, that yellow
How
sign
long
wasn't
is
part
this
of the
good
original
for, Betsy?
application.
Never get out of this
Betsy,
circular
how long do we have on this?
situation.
90 days?
You already voted it,
Yeah.
so
It's in our
now it's
It's
a,
conditionally approved.
yes.
But it's
So
in our interest to approve this.
But the
because then we can
condition is
modify it.
the right term.
Yeah.
That's the qualifier. If it doesn't meet the condition, then it doesn't exist.
Right. I mean, it's in our interest to move on this, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because then we're on record for what we've already seen, which is not what's coming.
You concur?
So when's the 90 days up?
Is it 90? Well, no, but
It's only been not even 30.
Because, listen to this,
Since you
because
closed the
if she
hearing.
comes with something, wants to change it, to Andrew's point, we can't modify a decision that we've never voted on. We have to vote on the decision
have
so
to
that
vote on
then
it.
if it wants to be changed, we can then
Yeah.
vote
We're,
to modify it.
Gino and I are both in agreement that you should
Just
approve that
deny it.
decision tonight.
Approve it.
Well,
Approve the decision tonight.
Right.
Oh,
Approve
approve
the
the
decision.
decision. but
Decision.
Deny the
basically,
design.
I hate to say it, this is, pardon the pun, but this is a bait and switch.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's really,
It's
It is.
10:30. And this is why you usually don't vote until you have the written decision in front of you, because you actually voted approval subject to, with that condition last time. I mean, I wondered when I was drafting the decision, because it was already, I drafted it as an approved final decision.
yeah,
The
but Gino,
difficulty-
this is two different,
Oh, I know, oh, I agree, I agree, I
She
agree.
had a very different graphic.
But the difficulty is that this isn't her stand, if you will. It belongs to somebody else, and she's trying to convince them to put her sign up there, and apparently that's all they're willing to give her.
No, you know, part of the reason, Gina, was
That's
she
right.
was feeling pressured because her sign designer wanted her to pay fees.
That's right, that's right.
To do the layout, and she was like, I don't wanna do fees unless I know I can do the sign, so we felt like, well, we can give her the approval, but we wanna see it after your designer does the layout. And so it was
Yeah.
sort of a way to meet her fear of not wanting to dump a lot of money on a designer and then turn around on the board the next week, say, you know, we changed our mind, we don't like it anymore, you know? So,
I don't
I think it
think
was the
we
right thing to
can
do.
approve her sign on on supports, which have another sign on it, which
That
is
was
not
not what-
approved,
that was not
and not
presented.
presented. You know what
I think we're all in agreement on
Can't you
that,
just
and
make a
that's not gonna
condition
happen.
Can't you just put a condition that any other signage on the stand will be subject to?
But that's already.
That's in zoning.
We'll bring her
Yeah.
in and we'll talk with her. We will talk with her. I
so
will
let's
talk with
vote
her.
on this, let's make sure there's nothing else.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with her sign.
No, that
But
neat
it
bait is
wasn't-
Now,
gonna go.
how can we approve this,
It's not-
then deny it?
There's a condition in there that says we have to approve the design. And then she gave you a different design.
That's a condition of approval. So if we approve it, we're saying the sign's okay the way it was
The way it
presented.
was presented, but now she's in violation of your approval because she didn't bring it back.
We're approving what was shown to us
Yeah.
previously.
What if she took what was there, okay, and instead of having that bright yellow with the words, it had on top what's there now for that sign, and then had her sign below? We could, if we agreed with it, we could approve that.
Yeah, but there's a third party involved. The guy who owns the stand is saying, apparently, I'm not gonna allow that sign to be put up there. I'm gonna give her the little strip sign.
Yeah, but
That's what Jeff's saying, though. Would we allow it if the sign was as it is right now today and not going to change, and what she had come to us was the strip sign?
We would, but doesn't matter what the guy who controls the sign says no.
Yeah, but then he's gotta come back, well, that's fine, that's between her, he and she.
Why don't we
I know
just
that's-
approve this, and if she comes in with a different sign, have her file for
No, you're
modification?
right there, Walter.
Huh?
No, you're probably right. The whole thing is just right with misunderstanding and he said, she said, if we don't do this.
Yeah, you gotta get the guy who owns the bait and switch sign to come in and say, listen, I agree, I'll let her put that sign up or I won't. This is, you got a third party here that you gotta get to the
give
table.
testimony as part of the decision.
Yeah.
We can reference the sign over.
I still think we're gonna get
No, she
ourselves in
sent it to me. I
hot
sent
water
it to
by
all you
approving
guys.
this.
All right, let's hold off then, Steve.
think I
Let's
saw
hold
that.
off.
Well, we have
There's no
90
reason
days.
to do it. We don't have to.
That was a while ago now.
Constructive approval.
Well, the other thing that does concern me is that she sent this email prior to us voting on this, and does that mean something too? That, she had submitted a design, and if we do approve it, doesn't mean that.
Why don't we hold off and let Betsy call her?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have plenty of
I think
time
we'll
still.
get ourselves in
It'll be a
trouble.
certain
We could
size.
potentially get ourselves in
Yeah, we
trouble.
get till next month anyway.
I will talk to her,
For the existing
Yeah.
go through this.
Yeah,
For
have
your
her come in May,
sins, right?
next meeting
So wait.
with a sign.
Isn't this
All
fun?
right.
Oh, fun, absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
We get really punchy at this time of
Be
night.
sticking
so-
around.
I was gonna say, I was about to try and make a quiet
We
exit.
wanted to do the switch and bait.
Winding Hollow, 9 proposed lots off 38 Holbrook Street.
Yeah. Very
That's a
good.
long ways
Thank you.
away.
Well, but it's a long document.
Good night, Andy.
Thank you, Andy.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good night, Andy.
Thanks.
Thank you.
9 Shire Drive. 1-year extension for site plan decision of her, isn't that one of those ones that got,
Wasn't that
Is
the
that a
car-
lead,
was
that's
that
a
the
lead,
car place?
that's a lead food, isn't it?
That was approved, but then he didn't construct it.
That's a
The
lead
car
foods,
guy.
right?
oh,
Um,
The TIF.
No, that's,
no,
Kevin Wallace,
Thank you.
the Chips Transport.
chips,
Oh, this is chips?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Was
Well, he
there a
decided to
chance
take
he
his
still might
business
do that?
elsewhere, didn't he?
Yeah.
He did, but they still want to keep the design so that if somebody buys it, and I think that's the case, is somebody
He's
else
trying to sell
going
his
buy it.
building with the lots.
Okay, I got you, yep, okay,
They have their approvals.
yep.
We can do that.
Yeah, we can do that, that makes
That's
sense.
easy.
Makes sense,
so
right?
it's just extending the, the site plan decision
Yep.
and the
Special
special
permit.
permit decision to 2/26/15. That's not very far away.
Well, let's make it
Wait a
3-3.
minute, I could be wrong on that.
16, maybe? That must be what he meant.
Yes, I'm sure it's probably what
It's
I
only a year away.
Yeah, that's a date,
Only a
that's a year
few days away.
Yeah, so 15, yeah, to 16. Yep.
60.
Are they both 2/16, 2/26/16?
Yep, they're both filed on the same day.
Okay, do we have a motion for those?
Motion to approve 9 Shire Drive, request for extension for a 1-year site plan decision 2013-13 and special permit decision 2013-14 until February 26th, 2016.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Pondville Plaza.
Date is
All right.
12/20/16, right?
Yeah.
No, 15.
No?
12, 15.
12/20/15?
Oh,
That-
12/20/15.
that date's right.
Only 15.
That date's right.
That one's right.
Probably,
You're going to be second guessed on all the dates now.
All right, do we have a motion?
Now, is this, did everybody, did you guys get the email directly from Al Quigliari?
I didn't get an email from Al quickly.
Yes,
I got an email directly from Al, did not come through you guys.
Yeah.
I asked Gino
So
about
that's
it.
And about the
Oh, really?
retention basin,
That was,
water retention
on the
basin,
medical building, yeah.
whose
Right.
elevation
Yeah.
is higher than
Yeah,
the
but that means
finished level-
nothing.
finished level of
But
this.
the question, the elevation means nothing. The question is, was the basin too close to the lot line? And that's what Gina was gonna look in and
That wasn't- that
see.
wasn't
Yeah,
his point
20
of the email. The
25
point was
feet
the
from
So-
elevation.
And it's supposed to be 100 feet from
From a
basement,
road.
from a basement.
No, 50 feet from a building.
Is it 50, are you sure?
It's
Because
about
his question
75
was-
to 80 feet.
Yeah, so it's got that.
Yeah.
So is it 50 or 75 from a building?
I thought it was 100, but I'm not an
It's
engineer.
100 from the road,
Yeah.
90%
From the
sure
road,
it's 50
25
a
from the
building.
lot line, and then
50 from a building.
But his point in the email was to make a point about the elevation.
yeah, but that's not even relative to whether drainage works or not. He's worried that because that's higher, it's gotta go, doesn't make any sense.
No?
No.
And what's he do with email and board
Continue
members
with the meeting,
directly?
Steve.
That's actually a separate
What's that?
issue than
I
this.
didn't catch that he had emailed you guys directly.
Yeah.
From
Yeah,
you.
that came out
Well,
Came
we are
out
going
today.
down the
this
list.
afternoon sometime.
Yeah, it was
Because
today.
I wasn't gonna bother anybody.
Well, yeah, but it has to do
today.
with Al Quigley. Oh, that is true, yeah.
Oh, you're right,
So,
it is 100
do we
feet.
want to
Yeah.
grant him a one-year extension?
Yes.
I thought.
All right.
I just
Do
didn't
it-
know if that had any bearing on
Thanks,
his
Steve.
decision.
No.
What about our old regulations?
Let's have a motion on this.
Okay, I move to extend the site plan decision 2013-6 and special permit decision 23-7 and stormwater management permit to 12/20/2015.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, no, not Fern Ridge Estates again with snow and ice payment.
Okay, Ray, you want the short story or the long story?
Short, so please.
Why isn't Bob here?
The short story is that the owner of Fern Ridge Estates has agreed to pay some of his bill, but he's disputing some of the other charges because he feels that those were excessive.
This is a year later.
It's
I
a
moved to pull the bond and pay the bill that's a year behind. He had time to go through this a year ago.
I would support that.
This has been going on too long.
Yes.
Been through this before.
The
I
highway
agree.
department sands every road at the same time, so it's not like they can pick and choose. They have a
It was quite
criteria
a
for
snowy
sanding.
winter last year,
Yeah,
too.
they have a criteria for sanding, but again, if it was valid, he should have been here a year ago.
Yeah, we're talking
Not
about
now.
$2,000 approximately, give or
Because we're
take.
sanding for the,
We actually had him here last year to discuss it at one point,
You probably did.
you know, enough already.
Yeah,
so that's my
he is not
my
one of our
thought.
Boy,
favorite people.
that's gotta feel good, doesn't it? Just take the money.
Take the money.
So Betsy, you're gonna have to start getting the ball rolling here. You're gonna have to find out how we're going to pull the bond on this.
I would
Work on that.
make a motion, I would make a motion to pull money for the bond to allow for past bill for paving, and then reevaluate the current bond to ensure that it's enough to cover the finish of the project. Because basically, if you're taking money from the snow and ice bond, that classification will be short.
So do we have a second on that?
I think we should review the current bond and bring it up to date.
Let me make sure I understand. So you just said paving.
Sorry,
Plowing.
plowing and
Plowing
sanding.
and sanding.
When I say paving, I mean plowing and sanding.
It's not what he
Every time
says,
you
it's what he
say that.
means.
At 10:15.
That actually could lead to a whole other
Yeah,
conversation,
which
which
we
we
don't
won't
wanna
have.
get there.
Yeah.
All right.
No, yeah.
So
but
do we have a
yeah.
second on that?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Winding Hollow, you didn't review that decision, right?
Too much.
Yeah, that's what everyone said, there was too much. How, review the decisions, preliminary subdivision, how long do we have on that?
Well, that's a special permit, so, again, you have 90 days from the close of the hearing, which was just less than 30 days ago.
Mr. DePlacido had notified his engineer, he's on vacation, that he was, what was the phrase? Jumping backflips because
He was not happy.
Of the $2,000 that was in his open space permits for maintenance of the trail. So.
One of the stipulations in the approval
Per lot.
is a $2,000 fee per lot to be deposited in an open space fund. At
That's
the
what we used to
issuance-
do. That's what we always did in the
It's,
past.
yeah, it's still in this decision, but, you know, there's still the question of whether this open space is going to be owned by a homeowners association, the Conservation Commission, or some other entity.
I talked with his engineer today, and I think the engineer was content, since we didn't even know where the trails are going or what the component, who's gonna take the land, that we just leave this decision as it is and have that all addressed when we do the definitive plan. Then we'll know where the trails are going, whether it's gonna be a homeowners association or it's gonna be open space donated to the town, so,
Have we ever left it to a homeowners association? No.
no.
No, we always have the town take it.
But if they form an association,
It's been a nonprofit.
right,
What's that?
Sometimes it's been a nonprofit, like the one you saw tonight.
right,
Mass Audubon has the
Oh,
open space
right, right.
adjacent.
right.
Okay, so we're gonna read this and deal with it at our next meeting?
Yeah, next meeting.
I hope.
Too much for tonight, right?
hope.
I agree.
One idea about that open space was maybe the neighboring Fish and Game Club might be interested in it. I know that things, I know that everyone's loved each other. No,
I bet they would.
All right.
I mean, unless they chose to manage it differently than they manage their current property.
They might.
Right.
It's a buffer.
All right, do we have meeting minutes to review and approve?
I have reviewed the minutes for January 6th, 2015, and they were adjusted, and they're good as they are.
Okay.
I read the ones for January 6th and thought they were, had more information in them.
Had sufficient, or more than it needs?
Oh, the ones from April that you had asked?
April,
you had
April
asked-
2014 are the ones that I looked at.
You had asked me to
Yeah.
put in some more information. This is
Yeah.
why.
And it took this long?
So I'd make a motion to approve the minutes of January 6th, 2015.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
So the reason the April 29th.
Yeah, why did that come
were-
back?
The reason they kept it kept is because this was about zoning articles. And there was no record of any of the discussions that were going on with those zoning articles. So there's a very succinct summary of the comments made, and there, I don't know if there are other comments or not, but the comments that are in here are more than report, it's good enough for me.
All right, so you're going to make a motion?
I can't.
You
Oh,
can
that's
make
right,
that-
you
You
can.
can make that motion, you want me to, Walter?
Okay.
Yeah, all right, so I move to approve the amended minutes of meeting for April 29th, 2014.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, set meeting schedule? No. March 3rd. Sign vouchers, do we have vouchers?
One I just passed on.
Oh.
Do you want to do the 10th and the 14th?
No, we're doing the 3rd.
March 3rd.
March 3rd and the
We already have
14th.
meetings for the 3rd.
Do you want to do the 14th, I think, is the question you were really asking.
Yeah, I just didn't, yeah. I mean, I'm from the old planning board, when, 2 meetings a month wasn't uncommon.
Yeah, three, 4 meetings a month.
I mean, 4 a month, yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the proposal here?
Oh, no.
14th?
Do we want to have April 14th? Well, we don't have the April up there.
April.
What date is it? What day is that
Sounds
on?
good to me.
It's a Tuesday.
No, I'm thinking about, we're gonna be looking at snow, I think,
Yeah,
April
thanks.
14th, maybe into May this year.
Yeah. Really?
Any other new business items?
How many signatures you need on this?
Just 3.
I was sitting
Okay.
here because we had a CPC meeting, and we had, we're considering a parcel of land that is a prime parcel of land for us to be considering. So they voted to go to an appraisal on it, and one of the things we need for the appraisal is highest and best use. And so I have a copy of the plan of land surveyed plan of land with no subdivision. So I was wondering if our planners, Gino, you're gonna recognize this property. I'm not saying what the
They were selling
property
it as a
is.
subdivision for
I'm not
years.
saying what the property is, right?
I
Because
love
it's just
mysteries,
something
especially
that's
a quarter
under
of 11.
I missed when it's missing, you said it's missing something, what is it you want?
This property here is under consideration for community preservation funds. You recognize this location? Okay? This property is owned by these people right here. And you talked to them about putting in, Gino, putting in a partial, putting in a cul-de-sac possibility. They thought they might be able to get 8 lots.
But the cul-de-sac has to be 500 feet.
And I didn't think 8 lots was gonna be possible. So I was wondering if you guys could sketch a approvable, what zoning would require so that we could give it to the, appraiser as what would meet zoning.
Unfortunately, there's 300 feet just to get the roadway in to get to the cul-de-sac, and there's
Right.
no room for lots on either side, so you got a cul-de-sac with 3 lots around it.
It's okay because it's only a plan for highest and best use.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Is
Yeah,
this-
we can sketch something out.
Is this
Could you?
is this the seller?
This is the seller.
If that seller has sold some of that land too, along with that, now you have a whole loop potential.
This is the Franklin Town Line.
Yeah.
And the Community Preservation Committee can't recommend
I get you.
purchase across the state line, the town line.
So you're stuck-
It won't affect, I don't think it'll affect the lots, but there is an interest in this owner to have shared use of any drive that comes in, that's future, and to actually keep maybe a piece over here on a diagonal, but I don't think that will affect what I'm asking you to do, which is highest and best use.
But even if you can't purchase the portion in Franklin, a development plan could extend into Franklin, and so you may be able to get more lots in the Norfolk portion.
Oh, okay.
Right, but you
Okay.
can't do a what if.
You'd have to look at
If
it.
you're appraising this land without that Franklin land, you can't do a what if. if I had
Well,
the
that's
next
true.
one.
That's
So-
right.
So you're stuck.
You gave an email to Cindy Andrade that showed the GIS assessors overlay on
Yeah.
top of not such good topo, but something.
It was USGS quad.
Yeah, so you'll have, oh, that's why.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Spec-
you'll have this, you will have this assessor's lot boundary?
No, we'd have to get it from Franklin if we could.
Oh, but it's on MassGIS.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay, that's true.
See, if you,
I forget I'm in Massachusetts
if you
sometimes.
could, if you could use this
And we have
land in
Rhode
your,
Island
if you could use this land in your
Yeah.
appraisal,
GIS.
Do you?
that, you could put a road coming in like that,
Just town
Right.
and have a 500-foot cul-de-sac going off the
I
side.
think just town boundaries.
So it's really, we've walked it, it's a really nice property, if you wanna walk it, I could, Cindy will get permission from the landowner, have you go out, but this is narrower than it appears, because this distance here goes to a culvert. There's a stream here, and there looks like a flat area in here is either bordering vegetated wetland or it's land subject to flooding. So it's kind of, the drive has to be kind of narrow and on this side.
Is that a perennial stream?
This one is, yeah. That is definitely,
Theoretically, that wouldn't be buildable.
well, that's pretty important.
Yeah, because you've got to stay 200 feet from the river, you've only got a 500-foot cul-de-sac, you have nothing.
That's pretty important.
So it's not buildable.
I didn't know that.
Do you have this electronically or is just
No.
paper?
Paper, sorry.
That's why I asked you about that land on, well, then again, with the river there, that really.
Do you want to leave this?
Huh? Yes, for you. All you have to do is say yes, buddy, and you get it.
Yes,
Thank you. You can give me the results or Cindy.
we'll do.
Oh, I know what you're saying now. This was like 10 years ago.
No, I'm not that old.
Yeah, a different developer.
1995 maybe?
Maybe more than 20 years ago.
You're certainly not that old.
Clearly not.
Are we adjourned?
Not yet.
Not yet, no.
I'm adjourned.
Sounds-
That's
sounds
all I
like there
came
was a
for.
motion, though.
Motion to adjourn?
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.